Welcome back to the Comics Aficionados, the best damn comic book podcast and YouTube on all the interwebs. We're going to talk about all the upheaval at DC Comics. We've got the Justice League dying off soon. We got Daniel Cherry III like escaping in the middle of the night. We've also got some Marvel news. 10 Lives of Wolverine came out. Apparently he's holding a baby, Charles Xavier. We got IDW losing the Hasbro license as we expected. Should be a fun day. How y'all doing? We got a great panel here. Perch, we haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I'm glad to be back with you. It's like old time. I've got chills. Old time.
You know,
are they multiplying?
I've been accused of being a bad influence on you.
Oh, really? Aw.
Yes, one of my commenters came in and said, I don't know what's happening, but Perch is complaining about DC Comics, and they were implying that it was because of me.
Oh,
we haven't even talked about this yet.
It's all your fault, and certainly not 48 Batman comics.
There's a lot of Batman comics.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Still in the Northwest, we've got Dylan, the real comic book gamer. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it's still out here in Washington, just pushing through it.
Man, you're the only one left. 2 years ago, I had 4 friends in Seattle. Now I've got you. Oh, man. Hope you're ready to talk about some DC Comics. Obviously, I brought in the DC Comics ringers. That's why I brought in Gabe, who does the weird science DC reviews as well as comical opinions from the indies. We got Josh, the Batman aficionado. Dylan, the biggest Superman fan of the world. Perch is, he's the jack of all trades. And then there's Doc. What the hell are you doing here? No?
Fuck.
He's late to the party.
No, but...
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
He's got a bad connection.
Oh, there you go.
He left.
The multiverse got him.
How you doing, Josh? You ready to do this? You were pretty tired when we did This Week in Batman.
Look, dude, I'm still tired.
Oh, no.
They're dropping like flies here.
Never had this happen before live on the channel.
I didn't even realize today was Saturday, and you sent the leak, and I was like, what the fuck? Shit. But I'm here. All
right. Hopefully that connection gets better. And also, we have Gabe with Weird Science. How you doing, Gabe?
Oh, I'm doing just dandy. And to prevent this problem, I just bought a Wi-Fi repeater that I've got plugged into the wall, so I'm great today. And a better mic, so I don't sound like I'm talking inside of a 50-foot cave.
We got Perch for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Yeah.
This Perch sounds much more masculine and bassy today. So we're going to talk about DC Comics killing off the Justice League. I don't know, Perch, am I looking too deep into this, that they're trying to kill off all the regular Justice League members, obviously to pop a number and create some controversy, but also to maybe bring in some new members of the Justice League, at least for a short time?
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately I don't think it's anything as elaborate as that, because we've already heard from several of the creators of the solo titles. They're still going to show up there. They're not going to be dead in those books. So this is a kind of anniversary stunt to sort of celebrate the 30th of Superman dying. It's not going to do those kinds of numbers, but it's hard to believe that this has any kind of lasting impact. And there's not just a number one, a couple months away where they're all back again, or, maybe they do what the Avengers did and you get some young people in there and kind of try and mix it up. But I mean, the second they said that none of the other titles are going to reflect what goes on in Justice League, I mean, hard to get too hyped up about that. I mean, maybe a great story, but it's hard to believe it has lasting impact.
Yep.
Josh, sound like you want to get in there. What do you got to say, buddy?
Oh, no, I'm just agreeing with them. I mean, like, anytime you're going to do this, if you're ever going to tell a story about the death of a character, there has to be some type of consequences. And it's very clear there aren't going to be consequences. So it brings about this idea of, what does it matter? And Perch is right. It could be a really good story, but if it doesn't matter, then, what are we left with?
I know, Gabe, I saw the Joshua Williamson quote where he's like, what was special about Superman and the death of Superman? Uh-oh, we lost Gabe now. He's talking about that router he had.
Welcome to Thunderdome, bitch.
Dylan, you're the Superman guy. So we saw Joshua Williamson talking about the death of Superman and how excited he was. And, he was all, excited because there was going to be no more Superman comics. But I don't think that's what really brought people to the table, is because they had read the story. There was a big buildup to it and they were excited for it. There's been no buildup in Justice League to the entire team dying. It feels like it's just going to kind of come out of left field, right?
Yeah, this just came out of nowhere. When I saw the tweet, I was like, wait, what? We're getting a Justice League? We're just getting some random oversized issue where the Justice League dies? It's so weird. Just out of nowhere, this is happening. And then, yeah, it's not going to be reflected in the other books. So it just feels so random.
Totally. I mean, and you're coming off a Bendis run. And Williamson, to his credit, I think is trying to architect something over there with Justice League Incarnate and everything he's doing. But all these efforts are happening in a vacuum, and it's I mean, across the board. I got heated last night thinking about it. Even announcements of new titles. You've got Sean Murphy doing Beyond the White Knight, so highly anticipated third series. An hour earlier, they decide to announce the Tom King series in there the same day. Why would you shoot all that marketing on the same day? And then less than a week later, they announce another Batman Beyond series that's completely different from the other things everybody's doing. And it's like, why are you doing this? Everything is completely independent, and there's no cohesion here. And there's good things DC is doing, but it's hard to love them when they're doing this.
Gabe, is this like an offshoot of the Omniverse where if everything matters, nothing matters, and nothing has to be connected anymore?
The answer is yes. And the reason I say that is because when you say that everything matters, that's just really the opposite side of the same coin that says nothing matters. It's a very convenient plot device to allow you to tell whatever story you want to tell without any obeyance or beholding to canon, previous stories, what the previous writers did, whatever you can conceive of. What clicked for me also when I was thinking about this morning is when they said, okay, we're going to get off the Justice League, and I'm looking at the different players of the different coffins with that shockingly bad poster that I think that Dan Jurgens put out. I noticed that all the people that are scheduled to die are all coming out of events that are getting ready to come up. You have the trial of the Amazons, you have Aquamen, plural, you have whatever's going on with Green Lantern. And it seems to me what they're already done by announcing this is happening is they're telegraphing the outcomes of those events. Yes, so it's probably a full expectation that trial of the Amazons, Wonder Woman's going to die. That when they do the Aquaman, then Arthur Curry is going to die. So you're, in a way, by spoiling that event is coming, they've also spoiled the outcomes of those events that haven't even started yet.
Well, and I mean, my read though is that they're going to die in the Justice League title, fighting this new kind of dark multiverse team. So I agree with your point, but I mean, what I took away from that was all these series that are supposed to have stakes, Trial of the Amazons, everything else. I mean, Green Lantern ended in a pretty cool moment. The last 4 pages of Green Lantern this week had a pretty cool, rally moment in that comic. They're doing big things with Jon Stewart, but we've now been told that 4 months from now, whatever happens in that book, however this run winds up, he's going to die. So, should we really invest in this current event? Should we invest in Batman returning to Gotham? Why bother?
I don't know what Green Lantern book you read, but that book was fucking terrible, man.
Yeah, we all have different. I know that this is not a popular opinion on this panel, but I think the final page and what came out at the end was pretty nice.
It was gibberish, but okay.
But what you've been seeing is that like Nubia and the Amazons, that's basically all it is. That entire series is pointless up to the point that it's really just a prelude to the trial of the Amazons. Everything that's Aquaman, The Becoming with Jackson Hyde, it's just a pointless prelude. That's all it is. It's just a prelude that builds into Aquaman when coming out of Aquaman, Arthur Curry is going to die. So there seemed to be like a repetitive structure of how these stories are linking together. But again, exactly as Perch pointed out, if they're going to die in 3 months or so, why even bother? Why care? There are no stakes. There's no sense of urgency or threat that you can really latch onto.
Sure, and then the flip side of that coin is if you assume that this is just going to happen in Justice League and it doesn't really matter, you can ignore it. Which people at DC are like, well, if you don't want this big event book, you can just ignore it and keep reading the solo title. Okay, then what's the point of the big event book? Like either direction, should we care? Should we not care? It's such a strange message to send to your readers.
I mean, DC's been sending the message of nothing fucking matters for a while now. But then again, so's Marvel, so they're not really that much better.
Good at status quo. Josh, you saw the poster, right? With all the people with the coffins.
Yeah.
The angle on that thing is really weird. Are they all leaning back? You notice
It
that?
was a weird angle. It kind of looks like they are. Yeah, no, because it looks like you got the coffins like that you're looking directly over, and then the characters you can actually see. So, what was that? Who was the rapper that had the lean back song? The lean back. We need that with the cover title. Also, the one thing I kept thinking of, despite all this like mattering, not mattering, what's going on in individual titles, what's going on in Justice League, do we think that they're going to continue this story in Justice League alone and not have it go on in other titles?
Yes.
My
Partition
assumption
Bendis.
is that this is tying into this bigger crisis event that they're working towards in, what was it? There was Infinite Frontier, Justice League Incarnate, and then there's going to be like the trilogy, the end of it, Perch, right? This is all leading into this big crisis, right?
I mean, that's what I'm assuming, but it also kind of get this feeling that they're going to kill these characters off, but only in Justice League. They'll still be around everywhere else, but hey, in Justice League, we're going to move forward with these characters not being here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a very good way to go there, Dylan. Like, what's the point of killing the characters off in one book, but then continuing them on in their own solo titles?
I don't know. This whole Omniverse thing was kind of pointless from the get-go. I don't get why they did this. Just out of nowhere, they're deciding to kill the Justice League, but then at the same time, they're like, "Don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal because they'll still be going on in their own titles." I don't get what DC's getting at here, because it's not the usual shock value that they go for, because they're telling you there's no consequences for it. Generally, they kind of just piss you off and like, you're just gonna deal with our decisions. Now they're like, you don't really have to deal with it, so why should you care? I don't understand what they're going for.
Well, I mean, this was packaged in a fan-friendly model of saying, look, we've heard you that you don't like events, you don't like crossovers, you don't like these status quo things shaking up and everything else. So to respond to that, we're going to let our writers just tell the stories they want to tell. We're not going to get wound up in continuity. We're not going to have this stuff happening. So if you're enjoying a writer, you're not going to get interrupted by somebody else's marketing event. And that sounds good on paper. The result, though, is then, okay, so every story has to stand on its own merits all the time, and nothing gets the benefit of the shared universe. Like it or not, DC, Marvel, these are shared universes. I think some of the writers really hate that fact, but that is the game they're playing. It's like saying, I want to work for the WWE, but I really hate wrestling. It's like, also, you're in the wrong business then, man.
Also, do all of your stories whatever you want. Continuity doesn't matter. And then we're going to do a fucking crisis.
Sure. Which we've been taught now for 3 or 4 different crises also doesn't matter. So, I mean, it's like, it's a shame, because I think there are some people out there sweating it out, telling some good stories. I think there's some people trying to get some things pulled together, but stuff like this just makes everyone's job so much harder. And it's hard for the readers not to just disconnect.
I think
so. We do have a few super chats I want to get to real quick. We got Lade Kramer first. He says, "So Perch, are you in love with the Texas weather?"
Yeah, it's nice. It's not as bad as I expect. He's right though. I don't understand this place. It's like it's 80 degrees and then it's like 23, and it shifts wildly. So that's crazy. I keep in mind I'm here in the winter, so I think I'll be on this show bitching like crazy in the summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like 130% fucking humidity. The you can actually just see a line where the water's where it's both raining and evaporating at the same time.
Can't wait.
That's going to be special.
It's way more humid in Thailand, but I was in Texas for a few summers, and it gets pretty damn hot. You're going to enjoy that. We've also got Callum Lyle. Thank you so much for everyone supporting the channel. I'm glad Jerry is leaving, but why is Jim Lee still there, and why is he not being held accountable? Yes.
Yes.
We'll be talking, obviously, this in a little bit more in depth after this one here. But Perch, I heard you had a little rant about Jim Lee.
Well, no, I mean, it was a bit tongue in cheek, and some people took it that way. Some people didn't. Some people really bothers them to hear it. But look, I love Jim Lee art. Absolutely. In fact, I'm looking at the wall. I've got a nice poster signed by Jim Lee right here. It's good stuff. I love him to death, his artwork. However, today he is a leader of a company. And so these decisions, whether fair or unfair, they fall on his feet. When you get to be the person in charge, you are the person in charge. And so, if these things are going on, you can't sit back and go, but you love my art from 20 years ago, right? I'm still that great artist. I'm sure you are. I appreciated the pictures of him taking George Perez around, and even a little picture that shows that he paid the bill for lunch. Good for him. That's great stuff. But, when your company is doing this kind of stuff, when you have people shock leaving like this, when you have multiple reports from up and down the line of editors not getting back to people. You have Jeff Johns saying it took months for them to get back to him about a proposal. He's one of the leaders in that company. Something is very wrong. And Jim Lee bears a lot of responsibility to that. And I posted I know he drew amazing pictures of Rogue in a jungle costume a long time ago. I love it too. But today we're grading him on being a leader. And at the end of the day, the buck stops there.
But
complain all you want about Cherry, but the buck stops there.
But is he? He has never run that company. He's always been paired up with somebody else to do the day-to-day work. He's never had to do it because I don't know if he's ever wanted to.
But he has a job.
It doesn't matter. But
he's paid
$1 million,
for it.
Doc.
He's titled that way.
Having a title and having the authority to do things are not the same thing.
They claim he has the authority to do things. He claims he has the authority to do things. He stood up in front of a stage and told everyone, the buck stops here. If those are the statements you're going to make, I'm not giving you an out because secretly behind the scenes, you don't actually have that control. Sorry, you've got a 7-figure salary. You got a C-level title. You got a bunch of people that you said you brought in. You said you're in charge. Yeah, you bear responsibility.
I do agree. I'm just saying I don't know if he actually does.
Well, he might not be capable of actually doing it. I think that might be what we're experiencing here. Well,
Possibly.
we do know one of Jim Lee's primary responsibilities is like continuity, not just in comic books, but between different mediums like the television, movies, and stuff. Josh, we did hear the rumors out there from Grace Randolph that they're replacing all the main heroes in the Justice League, and we're getting a new version of Justice League in the film universe. Is this just mirroring this? Is this him creating synergy?
I wish I believed that any of this was thought through. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, look, let's check back in August and see if any of this death of Justice League stuff matters in August. I have a hard time believing it will.
Yeah, I'm with Perch on this. I don't think it is. Even from the film perspective, I don't think there's any thought. I think the only thought process with the film side of things is just like people that they're dealing with. There have been behind the scenes conversations that Henry Cavill has been a little difficult from a negotiation standpoint. I don't blame him. I think he's trying to do what's best for him. And I think DC is trying to recover from all the, we'll say, sins that they've made in film. But no, I think for them, this is a way to try to get a clean slate without fully getting a clean slate and picking and choosing what does and doesn't work. And I don't know if it's the best strategy. Here in the comics, I almost feel like it's like, I think when Dan DiDio left, we thought, okay, we're going to get a fresh start and a different take from what we were hearing that Future State would be. And the further we get along, the more it sounds like the idea of Future State is really just coming further and further into fruition. So, no, I don't think there is much of a plan.
We got another super chat from Wolfskin 3D. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. DC is like WCW in its last days, hotshot booking 1 week to the next, hoping by the amount of stuff they throw at the wall, something will finally stick. He's kind of got a point here, Gabe. I don't know if you remember WCW when all of a sudden we had like the New Blood, and that lasted for 3 weeks, and then something else would come in. It was just there was no like mainline story or anything.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to. I don't like doomsayers.
Yeah.
However, you're not a doomsayer if what you say comes to pass, right? So you have to balance that out. Does it feel like DC has a plan? No. There's nothing outwardly. Now, internally might be a completely different story, but outwardly, there's nothing that indicates that DC has a plan. It looks like they're just kind of throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then try and capitalize on whatever seems to generate some buzz, some activity, some energy. To the point about Didio, my personal opinion on that is it was time for him to go. Whether he left on his own or was fired depends on your perspective of how that whole thing came about. And that was a positive because I think that they needed to shake things up a little bit. 5G, from everything that we've been told, didn't sound like the right direction. There was a whole lot of
We still got it.
Well, sort of, yeah. But the problem is not that Didio left. The problem is when Didio leaves, you have to put somebody in his place who's better than he was. And they never got around to doing that.
Right.
So what happens is you take one person who, for whether you agree with his direction or not, was at least pushing them in a direction. When he left and they didn't put somebody in his place that actually also had a direction that was a better direction, but you just wind up with a vacuum with Jim at least publicly acting as a figurehead, but not much else. you get what you get now, which is, the inmates are running the asylum. People just sort of randomly, chaotically going in all different directions, and nothing seems like a cohesive direction for the titles as a whole. So does it feel like the last season of WCW? Yes. Why? Because they don't have a strong leader with a strong vision and says, this is the direction we go. Follow that direction. You may not like it. Maybe not everybody agrees with it, but at least we're all moving someplace that people can understand. And right now you have none of that.
Man, I think you're so right, and I think the analogy is even better in the sense in the final days of WCW, they knew the company was up for sale. They knew that there was a lot of questions about ownership. DC isn't exactly in the same position. However, there is question about the ownership. What's Discovery going to do? How many of the senior leadership are going to keep their jobs? What's going to get merged? What's going to get consolidated? And so what's happened is just like at WCW, people have just kind of taken their foot off the gas, and they're just in wait mode to figure out what's going on. And that's where you get these stories of, senior edit, the senior black label editor talking about how much he hates email and getting back to people. You have just horrible complaints from, all up and down the roster. And I'm keep biting my tongue a little bit. Cause I know some of these people, I know some of the experiences they've had. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And here's the controversial statement of the day. I think that if Dan Didio had stayed, we'd see a better version of 5G than we have now.
Yep.
My question here is, to Gabe's point, and I don't disagree with him. When has DC had that strong guy at the top? I'm talking about a singular strong person. They've never had it. Not in 25, 35 years, because it's always been a pairing. Yeah, go back to Jeanette Kahn. That was it.
Yeah,
that was the last time.
Yeah.
It's been a pairing. It was Didio Levitz, Didio Lee Johns. It's Lee Cherry. It's never been one person since Jeanette Kahn that has run DC, and that's one of the reasons why they've been in now. There's might be one that's the more public face. Jim's the public face. Jeff was the public face. Didio was the public face. Paul Levitz was probably more of the hatchet man, the one that was actually, from what I've heard about the stories of what he did over at Wildstorm, definitely the fucking hatchet man. He was the one that was keeping everything in line. But look, Jim functions great when he's the only guy in charge. When he doesn't have to share, he's a guy that doesn't seem like he plays well with others. Sorry.
All right, so let's kind of get back to the subject at hand. Before that, we do have one more super chat. I forgot. Cal Miles says, Perch, I know you're not on Instagram a lot, but I follow you, and if you want to chat, I'm DC Neo 2. I do my own fan comics, and I'll share them with you.
Appreciate that a lot. I wrote down your name, and I'll reach out and definitely want to promote more of these indie artists. There's so much good stuff out there. I had a chance to talk to this Jay Gonzo guy. He did something with Top Cow. He's got a Zoop out, and it's Lucha. Speaking of wrestling, it's Lucha Libre comics, all drawn in kind of 70s pulp style. It is absolutely amazing. I love this thing, and he's got this thing out like $20 for 80 pages, and it's all in this. Again, 70s coloring and style and texture, and it just makes my heart so happy. So there's so many good independent things out there right now, and I'll definitely reach out. Thank you.
And we've also got Drew from Comics Elite. Just as Nero fiddled as Rome burned, Jim Lee sketched as DC fell.
No lies detected.
It does. It kind of feels like what's going on. And one of the weird things that we're seeing here, Gabe, is I think DC Comics have kind of backed themselves into a corner where they couldn't just kill a Green Lantern or a Superman now and get a headline. They got to kill off the entire Justice League, and it's all like gimmick marketing at this point because there's no consistent like stories going on that are really drawing in people. So they're just kind of what's the most outlandish thing that we can throw in there and get a headline and hopefully get some publicity.
Well, so we got early word of the Justice League death, but not from the perspective of the whole Justice League. We heard earlier on, I think it was back in the summer, that they were going to kill off Superman, kind of as a redux of the death of Superman back, decades ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You can't reproduce that phenomenon. You can't, because there was a novelty of that particular event, and there was such an impact on the zeitgeist. I mean, it was news report, like mainstream news reports, like network news reports. They're killing off Superman. You're not going to be able to reproduce that because it's already been done. And so now it's sort of like the law of diminishing returns, where now, okay, you've already done it, but how can we do it bigger? It gets a spike. It gets a little bit of attention. You know, there's been some dust ups over Twitter and Facebook and whatever else about going bigger and killing off more. But at this point, there's so little credibility into the stickiness of that particular move and whether or not the lasting impact is going to make a difference that nobody cares anymore. What do they say? The opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy. And to me, that's the most concerning thing about this is there's a general sense of that I'm detecting personally of apathy setting in, of people just like, okay, they kill them off and they'll be back in 3 months. That's worse. People can say, I hate this move, but when people say, I don't care about this move, that's worse. And I think that's a major problem that DC's got to deal with very quickly, unless things start to devolve into something that they can't come back from.
It's a bad situation, and it hurt. I mean, I'm looking at the comics this week. There are comics I always find that I enjoy, some more than others, and definitely I enjoy a lot of the older comics more than I used to. But it's hard to look at this stuff and see it go down. I on the stream last night, Joe and I are going back and forth, and we're talking about things. And I swear that Joe looks like he's laughing, but it's a pained laughter. If you watch
he's
it,
crying on the inside.
It looked like he was crying on the outside. It's like he was
like a sad clown.
He was in pain, and it's hard to see this, and it's quickly brushed off as like, oh, this is just somebody who hates comics. No, these are people who love comics, and they can't. These are such avoidable mistakes, and again, the stories you hear, behind the scenes at times are so much worse. It's really hard to get to.
Yeah, it's crazy because, Dylan, you think about it, Jason Fabok and Jeff Johns were selling like 300,000 copies an issue for 3 Jokers. They approached DC to do a sequel, and they never got back to them. Either one.
That makes no sense. You have a book that fans are excited about, people like, that creators are actually excited about, not just like some book they're being forced to do. Everyone wants it, and DC doesn't get him. But Bendis gets to write Justice League after the failure he had on Superman. I don't understand why they reward Bendis with that, but then Jason Fabok and Jeff Johns, 2 top-tier creators at like the top of their game right now, don't get to do a book that they want to do. It makes no sense to me.
No, I mean, Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing is getting to a pretty good build of a Superman story. He's got,
no one knows about
Action Comics is great.
Yeah, he's got a nice epic coming along, and the marketing for that just vanished one day. It's like, it's out there. Whether I like the books or not, I mean, I'm not a fan of what they did with Wonder Woman, but they're trying to tell a long form story. They gave up on that too. So it's bizarre what they're doing right now. They have people doing stories that they just can't be bothered with. You go to the Batman Twitter account and he's talking about student loans. I do not understand what people are talking about right now.
Batman's doing it too, because apparently Harley Quinn is bitching about her student loans.
Yeah, but why? Like, you have, I mean, in Christ, for DC, you've got 48 Batman books to promote, and you're wanting to make a social statement on student loans. Like, what are you even doing at this point?
I think the the official DC Twitter accounts are the Arby's of the Wendy's accounts. So they're trying to capture some of that kind of ironic, weird, back and forth humor that seems absurdist, but at the same time, I don't think that they realize how flat that lands.
They need to be Steakums. Steakums' Twitter account is much, much better. Plus, it owned fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson and just made him look like a fucking clown one day.
Well, so that's Steakums is actual meat, unlike Arby's.
Yeah, come on, man.
Cheese Whiz. Steakums with Cheese Whiz.
That's it. I've had enough.
Oh.
Your Arby's hate has finally won the day.
Oh, he's
got
missed
glasses.
this. Don't let him.
Oh shit!
Don't let him tell you otherwise. He's
now it's getting serious. Now that's the serious.
It is serious. All you need now is a mullet.
Tim Lim. Oh yeah, I got my Arby's shades. You ain't got the meats. Perch, what is your thing against Arby's? Why are you still doing this?
Oh, it's a joke at this point. I mean, look, if the stuff. It truly, if we're talking about a fast food place that is risking your life with, it's Taco John's, but that's a whole other story.
You don't like potato Lays either?
Okay.
It's like every time you do this to me, man, it's like you're trying to like crush my heart. What is it? You're going down a path I cannot follow, Perch.
I look.
You're breaking my heart.
I've never been as sick in my life coming out of Taco John's. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
it sticks with you. Well, it doesn't stick with you, but it sticks with you.
Hey, now that you're in Texas, I expect many barbecue stories.
Oh hell yes! There's so much good barbecue here. Just women and barbecue.
There's a good taco place in Texas, but I can't remember the name right now. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think is going to be the fallout of this? We've got the Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes nobody's reading. Does this pop the number that they need, Perch? Are people going to be interested in this? Because I see people like upset, but are they going to hate by it?
I don't think it's going to terribly matter. I mean, I think it will sell some books for the month. I don't think it has long-term viability, but I mean, nobody at the full-time employee part of that company is playing for long-term right now. That's a challenge. And the reason why they're not playing for long-term is I think they think that Discovery is going to come in, they're going to wipe out the management if they keep it, or they're going to shop it to someone else. Now, but if you're smart, what you would do is try and position the company as strong as possible. So either you have a good executive role in the new company, whatever it happens to be, or you've got the price of what this company is going to get sold for to be as high as possible. Instead, by just kind of phoning it in and killing time because you're just waiting to see what will happen, not answering your creators back and things like that, you're going to drive the price down. You're going to make yourself irrelevant. So I do think we're going to get a new DC. And please, nobody, don't be one of those jackasses and writes an article says, Perch says DC is going to get sold. These are just scenarios that could come out. All I'm saying is at any moment in that company, you want to position yourself as strong as possible.
So what
absolutely, because they're going to do interviews when they take over Perch, and they're going to be talking to people that have worked with them. If they hear, oh, this was the only person that was meeting my needs or whatever, you're indispensable now.
For sure. No, I mean, why look, and if you're going to run it as a low-cost business, why would you pay somebody a decent salary to not answer emails and brag about not answering emails on Twitter? That would be insane. You're not bringing enough money from the comics to justify being a jackass. So it's like, if your sales, and this is, I think, what got Joe in his heart last night, is, we're looking at the newsstand sales when Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane sold on average 350,000 copies on the newsstand. And it's Jimmy Olsen marrying a monkey, and Superman's a witch doctor on this cover, and it's selling 350,000 copies. And so today, if you were selling that, you could be the biggest jackass you wanted to be on Twitter, but not doing that. Again, I'm not talking about the creators, the editors, the full-time employees. You manage that portfolio. You can complain about a story. You can say, oh, why is Vita writing this story or that story? Vita's a freelancer, comes and goes. You're the editor. You're the full-time employee who managed your portfolio this way. You're the one who did 2 announcements on Batman on the same hour. You're the idiot.
Yep.
So we do have a few super chats I want to get to. We got Sadiq with flowers. What's up, my man Perch? Jim and I Jump comic was great. And apparently Doc had her laughing on Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes video. Well, you're in luck because what did we review, Doc? We did Superman, Son of Kal-El, Green Lantern, and we did 10 Lives of Wolverine.
Oof.
That was rough. But Doc loved it. He's a masochist.
We beat a lot. We beat up a lot.
That's what those comics did to his brain.
Yeah, he's done. So Perch, Jim and I Jump was his big success. People enjoying it?
People seem to like it. It was quick. All the credit goes to Larry. He put out a good book. I know they sold out at Box Lunch and some of the stores it was in, which is cool. And we moved a lot of copies. I think we moved more copies than Savage Dragon.
No, well, that's
just
not
for what it's
real
worth.
High bar.
Don't let Eric Larson hear you say that.
Thank you back.
Yeah, Eric Larson just entered the chat.
Welcome back, Sadiq Flowers. Really appreciate that. We've got Lade Kramer. This makes me sad after learning about the end of Wonder Girl. I struggle to find a title to replace it with. Any suggestions from the panel upcoming?
From DC.
I don't know anybody.
I would recommend.
Read
I would
Crimson
recommend,
Cage.
I would recommend. replacing it with the money staying in your wallet.
Save
That's
up
what
for
I
a
would
good
recommend.
comic.
Look,
Yes.
I think there's some good stuff out there. There's some good indie comics out there. We can get into it more a little later.
Oh, he says yes from DC, so he's looking for
yeah,
DC
from DC.
suggestions.
Read Robin.
Robin
is
yes.
very solid of a book. Absolutely.
Flash, Robin.
Flash has been good. What Williamson has been doing has been solid. I mean, that's the thing. This Death of the Justice League will probably wind up being a pretty solid story. I mean, if you're just reading it in isolation, I suspect it'll probably be okay. It's just, what we've been talking about is will it matter? But I suspect it'll be a decent book.
Yeah, probably be
Yeah,
good.
I see Swamp Thing, Green Hell, and Robin and Batman in the chat. Both great. Both Lemire. Lemire is now off the table. So,
Yeah.
He's a
what does that tell you?
exclusive
No?
to Image.
Yeah.
I don't know, Perch. What do you think about Wonder Girl? How did they drop the ball like this? That's
I
like
think that
real
they were
incompetence.
they were so hung up on the fact that it was a CW show. So they're like, we're making this, and there's going to be nice synergy with a CW show, and then CW canceled the show, and they're like, well, okay, we don't know what to do now, and so they just
They
stopped.
lost interest.
And I Joelle Jones is another one where, let's see, may or may not have been trying to get a hold of editors to talk about plans where the thing wanted to go, and just I was as surprised as anyone else when it had massive delays and stuff was already in the can and pages just weren't circulating. So don't know what to say.
Absolutely. We got Cal Lyle. Keep T. Franklin away from animals. I imagine that's in reference to Harley Quinn Eat Bang Kill Tour.
Yeah.
Don't disagree with you there. We've also got MVP Macfield Von Priestley. We'll definitely have him back on the channel soon. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, you are missing out. Those who can't create, only destroy. Great to see such amazing creators on the panel this morning. Thanks, guys. Well,
Oh no, I just destroyed.
YouTube creator. Yeah.
I just destroyed.
What do you think about that saying, Gabe? I kind of believe it. If you don't know how to build something else up, you just kind of just decide to break everyone else's stuff.
Well, I mean, there's always some validity to every saying that sticks around longer than it should. I think it's more along the lines of, rather than if you can't create, you destroy. I think it's more along the lines of idle hands make for the devil's play work, or however that saying goes. I think it's the general sense that you get impressions. I kind of piggybacking off of something Perch said earlier is I rarely follow creators on any platform. There are just too many creators that say stupid things and just infuriate me, and I don't need my day infuriated any more than it already is. Pardon my mispronunciation of that word. I haven't had enough coffee yet. But I remember I was following one, I think it was one marketing analyst or one marketing director at DC, and he just started throwing out these tweets about, hey, I was just in a conference call and nobody knew this X, Y, and Z thing about Aquaman, even though it was an Aquaman planning call. And then all these other internal employees started chiming on the thread saying, yeah, that's hilarious. We didn't know anything about that. I'm glad somebody told me. It's like, first of all, why do you have internal employees that don't know anything about a character that you are in an active planning session for? B, why are you announcing that publicly? And C, why do you think that's funny?
Yeah.
If I was an executive of DC, I'd lose my mind over that. What are you doing?
Yep.
People say it's comics, don't treat it seriously. It's not that you don't take the comics seriously, it's you take your craft seriously. You take the responsibility of the company seriously. You take what you're trying to produce, what you're trying to create, what you're trying to grow within the marketplace seriously. And when I see stuff like that, it's like, what? You're marketing. How are you in marketing and telling everybody that the people that you were just in a Zoom call with internally to plan for a character don't know anything about, are missing gaps about what the character is all about? And you think that's funny.
This
such a good point.
Industry celebrates its own fucking ignorance these days. Willfully, gleefully, and regularly.
It's just such a good point. I mean, but can you imagine, again, using the wrestling analogy, if a bunch of wrestlers were on Twitter talking about it, I was like, oh man, I had no idea what I was doing in that ring this time. I dropped the guy on his head and we barely avoided massive neck damage. I was high on coke the entire time as well. It's hilarious. Like that's where we're at. It makes me absolutely crazy. People get really after the tweets that are, social themed or whatever it happens to be. Like people get really hung up. That person has a Black Lives Matter icon in their profile. Okay, fine. But stuff like what you're describing is the true death for me. It's literally just mocking what you
Well,
do for a living.
Here's
Who
the
would
thing.
buy that comic? And you're trying to hawk this stuff at $6, and you're openly bragging about how we had a marketing call and all of us were incompetent. It was hilarious.
Here's the thing. I think the reason why a lot of, I mean, I know I'm guilty of it too, focusing on what they're saying about social shit and whatnot, and rather than promoting their comics. But I'm bitching about the fact that these are the same people that are reveling and celebrating their own fucking ignorance while wasting all their time on stupid social shit rather than actually getting good at their fucking craft. Or even making an attempt to.
Sure. And by the way, I agree. I think you should do, to me, it's rarely the social topic, because some of the stuff, I'll agree with or not agree with, but it's the lack of self-control to say, I'm in a position where a lot of people are listening to my voice. They're they love comics. So they want to know something about what I do for a living. And instead I'm going to do a silly Billy, nonsensical NFT rant for 3 days. It's like, what are you doing?
All right, so we do have a.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Josh. Get in there, Josh.
I was just going to say kind of what Doc was talking about. Like, I think the things that we tend to complain about sometimes are more so just symptoms of what Gabe was just discussing. Of you've got all these people in these positions, and I'm not necessarily the writers, just the people in the full-time positions, the editors, and it's like they don't take their job seriously. They don't treat their job like it's an actual job. And yes, I as someone who has teams, who has people under me, I'm all for, like, enjoy your job, have fun, but at the end of the day, you have to get serious and actually do the work. And that element is missing.
And that speaks to kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, which is it feels like the employees are holding their breath. It feels like they were just waiting for whatever shoe they know internally is about to drop. And so what I do now doesn't matter. What I do doesn't care, because I might not have a job in 4 months.
Right.
So
and it's a weird combination too. You've got that, and the stuff that I'm hearing from the people that I know, especially at DC, is how reactionary everything is. So it's like you're not making big decisions because you're waiting for the shoe to drop, but you're kind of doing that aspect of where you're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks, and then making very minor, like, short-term decisions of try this. Okay, don't do this. Let's do this. Let's go this way. Or not communicating at all for a small period of time and then saying, oh, we're actually going to do this. But again, it's never been, at least from what I'm hearing, major changes, but it's just quick little shifts that, you never get that flow of what we're talking about earlier. There's no sense of direction. So it's a weird.
We're gonna get
double.
We're gonna get into that topic here a little bit more fully. We do have a couple of super chats I want to hit real quick. Then we'll get into this Daniel Cherry thing leaving. I do want to say right now we have over 300 live viewers right now. We only have like 80 likes. If you're watching the channel, you want everyone to know we're having a good time. Give us a thumbs up. Let everyone know that we're having a good conversation here, so we can get some more people over here having a great conversation about DC. We got these last two super chats. We got You Murdered That Guy from up north in Canada. The shadow that bred them can only mock, it cannot make. Not real new things of its own. Tolkien. Absolutely.
Very solid quote. Won't be part of the new show.
Do you think it will be? That thing looks absolutely awful, but yeah, they are trying to destroy Tolkien and anything else that has stood the test of time right now.
I'm very worried for that new Lord of the Rings show. That I'm very nervous about that. And I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, and that show makes me very nervous.
I think we'll have forgotten about it in 18 months.
You might be correct. We've also got Lade Kramer says review Williamson's Rogue series when it comes out. There's a very high likelihood that I will, because we do the best comic books of the week. And right now there aren't a lot of great DC comic books out there. So it doesn't take a lot to get to that upper spot and get a recommendation every single week that your comic book is released right now. So I imagine that will happen. And I would want to say thank you to everyone that is supporting the channel for the super chats. Let's get over into the Daniel Cherry quits. Obviously, we've been kind of talking around this one and hitting on some of these elements. It does feel a bit, Perch, like this are the rats jumping ship. We know that before this, a couple of big time execs had already left DC Comics willfully. They were not fired; they just kind of up and quit. And now this is an even bigger quit, as in he was the big hire that they thought they could bring in and really I don't know, modernize, what do they call it? Future-proof DC Comics?
Yeah, and bring in a global aspect to it. I mean, that was another big part of his job that kind of got that, went under the rug. I mean, yeah, I think he was brought in under a regime that had a plan. Has been in business enough to know that there's a new regime and a new plan, and he probably doesn't fit in it. His style is most likely not synonymous with whatever the Discovery management style is. I mean, at that level, that's how you're looking at it. Like, do I have a place? Do I have upward mobility in this new company? The answer is no. I said on my channel, I've talked to the guy a few times. I have a different perspective on him than most of the YouTube things that have gone on and most of the commentary. I'm not playing a violin for the guy, but it is that it's he had an opportunity to jump to a better gig. He did. I think you'll see more of it for the people who can. But kind of bridging the last topic and this one, and it relates to Daniel Cherry. One of the challenges in comics is that, generally speaking, you can be bad at your job. And you can just then hop over to another company and keep being bad at that job. And this goes on for decades.
Yes.
And so a lot of people
serial job hoppers.
Sure. And so,
I don't hire them ever.
But what's your motivation then to really go out there and do a great job? If you're that person, you have been molded in the sense of, it's fine. Like, if you're Bob Harris, you can run Chris Claremont out of the X office. You can absolutely botch the relationship with all the artists. And then you can wander over to DC and lead it over there for a while. And right now, I know there's several small companies trying to raise money and get a big salary so they can afford Bob Harris. Are you out of your mind at this point? His knowledge of the industry is not nearly as valid. It doesn't outweigh the incompetence he's shown over the years. But you can go down the line and you look at the leadership of these companies, and they're people who've just hopped and screwed up. So that's why a lot of people are sitting back and waiting. They don't feel any need to push themselves. The people who've had outside jobs like Cherry, they're just getting out. And that's what we got.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, Dylan. Obviously, you follow DC Comics. You're a huge fan of everything DC. What the hell did Daniel Cherry do while he was there?
It feels like nothing since he joined and since he left. It doesn't feel like he really did anything that substantial to DC. Just kind of,
maybe Batman Fortnite.
Well, there's that, but I remember like when it was all announced and people were worried, like, this guy knows nothing about comics. What's he gonna do? How's this gonna go down? And then he just leaves all of a sudden. It's like, oh yeah, he just didn't really do anything in the end. He was kind of there, and then he's gone. And it felt like he left like a thief in the night. Like, he never really did anything. He's just kind of there, and then he's gone.
They don't. That's the point of being a serial job hopper. You get that first 6 to 10 months where you're getting your feet under you in a new company, and everybody lets you. Then you have about 6 months where you pretend to try to do things, and then you got the last 6 months where you just fucking leave. You're finding your new gig. That's what they do in every single situation.
But here's the crazy part about Cherry, and this is, again, not meant to defend, but here's the crazy thing. He can claim that he was either directly or indirectly, because his claim is that he was responsible for it. Other people say no, but I in this instance, because of his video game ties, I think it's hard to claim he had nothing to do with it. He can claim he made the company the most money last year via the Fortnite deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, if he was ever any good at his job, first, he would have actually been able to sell a fucking ticket to the New Jersey Devils, because he never did that.
Well, we're not talking about the New Jersey Devils.
But he made the most money for the company last year, if he's to be credited for that.
Absolutely. We do have a few super chats that have come in. We've got K Manifesto. If anyone can right the wrongs of DC, it's Jeff Johns. It just so happens I made a video about this not that long ago with Dylan. I haven't published it yet, Dylan.
Yeah, we got all into that because we 100% agree with what you said there. Jeff Johns is the guy that was true with Rebirth and Doomsday Clock, and it's still true now. I really hope DC gets him back, but I doubt it.
He's not like bagging stuff up and doing great things on the films division anyway. Bring him back.
Exactly.
Give that man his money. We also got the Doctor. I don't know who this fool is. I said at the beginning, I stand by it. If Daniel Cherry was any good, he never would have been in comics. That's a lot of money.
Look, this is the fact that, again, it makes me crazy about this situation is we've heard it now from several people, like not all the same group of friends, but several different people. They're like, well, one thing about Daniel Cherry, he would come up and talk to me about the comic book I was reading or I was writing. He would actually, get in touch with me and have notes or have comments about the comics. And when I hear that, I don't think in my head, wow, what a great guy Cherry is. I think, what the hell is everybody else doing? Like, you're complaining your editors aren't getting back to you. And then the thing you have to say about Cherry is, well, at least he was the one executive who was reading the comics. To me, I mean, that's nice. I'm glad if he's reading the comics, but that's a very damning statement. It's not. It's that.
It's like
almost
the CB Cebulski tweet when he's like, "I've got all these Marvel comics I haven't read," and it was like 3 months worth of books.
No, that was Brevert.
Cebulski regularly brags about being behind.
Brevert does too.
Perch mentioned that's a very damning statement, and I think he's kind of referring to the editors, but I think it's still damning to Cherry himself, because shouldn't it be his job to make sure the editors are doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Sure, I agree. No, totally. I mean, it is, that goes back to that Jim Lee responsibility fact. Absolutely, there's questions there. I mean, I'm glad you're reading the comics. That's good. But what are you doing with your staff? Why is it that the culture of the company now is like, well, I got to hand this to him. He reads the comics. That's our bar for our. I mean, there's so many weird things about that statement that drive me crazy.
But to
we do have
pair that with the prior comment is, why isn't anybody saying that about Jim Lee?
For sure. Yeah. I mean,
why isn't anybody saying Jim Lee is going up and down the hallways and popping in and talking to readers and editors about whatever line they're running on? What's worrisome about that position is I think Jim Lee's organization is above Daniel Cherry, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But everybody knows Jim Lee knows comics. Nobody doesn't think that Jim Lee doesn't know comics. And yet nobody can seem to tell that they have a working, collaborative, internal relationship with Jim Lee on any title that they can speak of, that they're saying publicly, that they're willing to, do self-effacing comments and laugh about how they don't know anything. But I don't see anybody putting out tweets or Facebook posts or just making comments or sending emails and saying, hey, we just had this great meeting with Jim Lee, and that guy's got a vision for where we're going to go with Aquaman.
See, here's the thing.
You're not hearing any of that.
Well, here's the thing with Jim. Jim's job isn't to liaise with the actual talent. His job is to manage his job is to manage the editors. And part of that is, if he's finding out that none of his editors are even talking to the creatives about their books, then he's not doing his job. But his job isn't to do that. His job is to talk to the editors. The editors' jobs talk to the creators. That's how it works.
Daniel Cherry, but we know the editors aren't talking to the creators. We know that from firsthand knowledge from half the people on this panel. So if we know it, I know Jim knows it. But what is he doing about it?
What at this point, what choice does he have? Daniel Cherry fired all of his good fucking editors.
Most of those editors left on their own, first of all, and you're also the firing of the editors is, well, again, it's not Daniel Cherry's job. That's a different person we haven't talked about. It's Marie Avins, and there's somebody who, again, it's now, what are we, an hour into this show, and this is the first time her name's coming up. There's your EIC. Maybe that's a problem. You think?
Well, speaking of Marie, we do have this super chat here from Callum Wire talking about, Cherry didn't fire Vita. Well, Vita is a contractor, a freelancer, so you can't really fire him. You just can't renew their contract or whatever. But we have heard from Marie Avins about how Nubia and the Amazons is the lead-in to this big Trial of the Amazons event. Gabe, I know you read Nubia and the Amazons this week. I read Nubia and the Amazons this week. Shocking that this is the lead-in to a big event, because that thing it's like a joke.
That does it.
I gave him a seizure.
So usually what happens is, both with Weird Science, Comical Opinions, and whoever else reviews we're doing, when we start a tile, we try to give it the benefit of the doubt and stick it all the way through. We try to look at every single issue as a fresh start and opportunity to impress. That's why my pick of the week is actually not a DC title. It's a Marvel issue. We'll get to that later. It's a little tease there. When I read Nubia and the Amazons this week, I couldn't believe what I was reading. That you had a flashback to Nubia's time in Chicago, and she turns into basically a toxic male pickup artist by saving a school
It's okay when women do it. That's the message here.
Don't you put words in my to to start using pet names to a stranger she just met, to follow that stranger home, and to I couldn't believe what I was reading. Newbie in the Amazons has not been a great title. I've been sort of hard on it from the beginning. It hasn't been the worst thing I've ever read, Children of the Atom, but it definitely has its problems that it's sort of like floundering and not really going anywhere. And it just seems like it's all prelude to go into the trial of the Amazons, whose whole intent is to maybe basically lead into Wonder Woman dying again in less than a year, I guess, or a year. But when I read that, I was like, how do you have a okay? So here's where it gets into a problem with social media. It gets into a problem because the creators in kind of their attitudes and how they present themselves publicly. If I picked up that issue and I had no idea who Stephanie Phillips was, or had no idea who Vita Ayala was, or had no idea who any of these people were, I would think this was a really weird and bizarre comic. But when you take their online personas that they tend to project to the public and then add that on top of that, it makes it more bizarre. I don't understand what they were going for here. How do you turn the whole idea of the comic was to boost up Nubia as a character, to get to know them, to get to understand why they're a hero, to get to understand how it is that you get invested in them taking over the mantle of the Wonder Woman rather than Diana. It's the whole thing is to build the character up, and right in the middle you put this bizarre flashback that has nothing to do with the rest of the issue, and you turn her into this creep. It's bizarre, and I don't understand what's going on. That again, this goes back to the prior subject. An editor worth their salt who understands storytelling would have nicked that right from the get-go. They would have seen that script and like, I don't know what the hell you're doing. This needs to come out right now.
Nobody edits Vita.
Really not. Did you get to read it, Perch? Did you get to read Nubia?
I mean, the book is awful. I mean, it's awful, and it's done by some people who aren't ready for prime time. And I mean, I get tired of bagging on Vita, and it's exhausting at this point. And Stephanie, it wasn't. Look, in the most generous way possible. It wasn't for me. I'm not sure who it was for. It certainly wasn't for me.
So speaking of not for me, we've got Fatal J in here supporting the channel. Thank you very much, Fatal J. Wanted to send you a super sticker with a unicorn, but it wouldn't let me. Well, it's because my channel's too cool for unicorns. I don't know. I would have taken it. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for thinking of us. Thanks for supporting the channel. We've also got K Manifesto. Now we can't say DC Comics with a cherry on top. I'll see myself out. Very nice. I like dad jokes, so very well done, sir. I don't know. What do you think, Perch? Is this the beginning of a more mass exodus of as far as important people at DC who can get another job?
I mean, yeah, I think. Let's see. How do I want to put this? I'm sure people who have the ability to leave will leave.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of resumes out there already.
Yeah, and I'm sure other people will wait around until Discovery does their thing. I'm curious to see what Discovery does. Are they going to try and integrate? Or are they going to try and shop it? Who knows? But it's there's definitely going to be a new management team here. I'll be curious to see. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jim Lee kind of segue out to doing, marketing and being a evangelist for Warner Media and be more disconnected from DC as a comics entity.
Can they joke Asada him?
What's that?
Can't they just joke Asada him?
They could. I mean, arguably, that's the problem is they've given him the aura of responsibility, but arguably that is what he's doing now. So, where does all this working?
Here's the thing: Jim's a very nice guy. He's a very shrewd businessman. He is not a extroverted person. He's just not.
Well, that doesn't matter. He's getting paid millions of dollars.
No, but I mean, to be an evangelist, you have to be at least somewhat extroverted. Joe Quesada, Stan Lee, Jim Shooter, they were extroverts.
We've talked.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we've talked about this before on here, and I know we bring this up, but every time someone says Jim Lee's not extroverted, I always think back to every time I see him in person, and I say the opposite. Like I feel like
You're right.
If you see him at Comic-Con, he's extremely extroverted. He's extremely passionate. He pulls you in. Like he creates a pull there, and that's something that I feel like only extroverted people can do. I almost wonder if they've got him split up doing. Maybe they're not pushing him to utilize that aspect, and maybe it's him that he needs to decide to utilize that aspect. But I think there's a difference between not doing it and not being able to do it. And I think he's able. It's just not happening.
Well, I mean,
I think he's not a self-starter. I've seen the same thing you have, by the way. He does have that aura, but he doesn't self-initiate. I think he's got to be pushed to do it. The challenge is when you're at the top, when you're in senior management position, you have to self-start. There's not going to be somebody who's going to come around and be like, all right, head of the company, time for you to go out and smile. You've got to self-do it. Sorry, I cut you off there. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I don't think it's a question of whether or not he's extroverted or introverted. I would love to just hold on to my introversion and just cut this all off and nobody see me and all that other stuff. But it's, it's healthy for me to kind of put myself out there. Especially after that Hollywood Reporter interview, it looks like a guy who is absolutely not engaged with what's happening at the ground level.
100%.
Yeah, that Hollywood Reporter article was weird because it, especially when he's talking about how we're going to streamline the lines, more is less, we're going to focus on impactful stories, and then you see where we are, especially with the the Comic-Con numbers that just came out from December. That is the exact 100% polar opposite of what everything he was talking about. But he's the guy in charge. So when he says those public statements, it looks like somebody who's very disconnected with what's happening in his own company, and I don't get it.
Look, in fairness, they are literally just copying Marvel from a decade ago, and Marvel said almost Axel Alonso was saying almost the exact same words back then and doing the exact opposite thing. So hey, they just went in Marvel's trash and picked up all of their ideas from 2011 through 2015. That's all they're doing.
I
So they
think
picked up the script too.
I think that Cherry at the end of the day is not a fit for this company. It's good. It's always better people move along. So move along. Maybe you can find some success with Kanye. Who knows? But off he goes. The part that irks me, not to beat a dead horse, but I do get annoyed that so much of the commentary is Cherry is awful. Cherry's a race hustler. Cherry is these 18 things. And then meanwhile, you've got the person who's actually in charge of editorial, Javins, who nobody talks about. You got Jim Lee, who's in charge of both these people, who, is like, well, but he's a great artist. That's the part that gets me. I do think Cherry was not right for this job. I don't think he was the right person for this role. All those things are true. And I think they wasted their money on bringing a game executive and then doing nothing with it, all that stuff. But he, to me, when I look at the problems of that company from a leadership perspective, he's third on my list. And the other two are still there.
Look, in fairness, Daniel Cherry was an easy fucking target. He doesn't have any history in comics, so he's the easy target.
Sure, I'm sure that's it. And I'm also, people are very highly attuned to what people put on their profiles and that kind of stuff. And by the way, if you're in marketing, you shouldn't do that because the attention you're going to get. So that is on you or on Cherry, but still, I really don't get how we get no calls back marketing.
Once again, proving my point, he's not very good at marketing.
If there's validity to his resume, and I took a look at his LinkedIn profile, and so I'm not going to say I didn't, but I did. He's been associated with some pretty high dollar brands. I mean, $1 billion brands. So I think there could have been potential for him to do some positive work with DC.
In fairness,
but in a different role
in that building.
Well,
they were,
but not in the role that he had. I think general manager may have been just the wrong role for him. If they put him like head of marketing or something that was more along the lines of developing a brand as opposed to kind of running how DC makes comics, I think maybe that might have been a better fit. I mean, it doesn't matter at this point. He's gone. So it doesn't really matter. But I think it's just another example of you're taking people and then putting them in roles to get that, in some cases, maybe even just to kind of get that quick media hit. But then when it comes down to the brass tacks of actually getting in there, rolling up your sleeves and making the company better from the time you start to the time you leave, focusing on people who can get that done. If I look at what he did, he made the money. That's great, but it's a short-term gain, and there's no long-term value out of it, maybe, unless they continue to leverage the Fortnite contracts. But is DC in a better place today than when he started? And right now,
No.
it's at best an I don't know.
So
For
I
his
just want to jump in
perspective,
for
probably, yeah.
I was
neutral.
going to jump in for a second too, and especially with him leaving as early as he did he come in and sign a short-term contract? Do we know?
No, we don't. I mean, my suspicion is based on his role and other things that, he had a longer term contract and there was a buyout clause and he was able to, negotiate a deal where he didn't have to. I mean, there's things that were done. I think that right now with all the diligence and stuff going on, I think if an executive is coming in saying, hey, I've got a better gig, they're going to find ways to let you go.
Oh, agreed. I've seen that happen. I was asking because I've seen too where we've, like, in my past experience, we've had executives that, companies I work for purposely brought in for just 2 years. And it was strictly just to get well, not even transitionary. Like, we would do it for the means of just getting certain contacts. Like, it let us have a foot in the door with different companies. And I'm wondering if that was kind of like the idea behind Daniel Cherry to begin with. Like, get him in, he'll get like our foot in the door with certain contacts we couldn't otherwise get or not as easily, and then go that route. Because we're talking about what he did with Fortnite, but is he also behind the webtoons? And is he also behind some of these global initiatives that came back? If he was, then that's creating a long-term benefit.
The webtoons thing came before him. That was
Okay.
not Marie Javins, but the other one, the woman who then went to Tapas. She did that one. Michelle Wells.
Gotcha.
Got that going. Cherry, again, Cherry's claim is that he did Fortnite. People are now saying he didn't. If you're asking me if I had to pick, I would guess he did. I think there's some revisionist history going on there. I think that the other thing Cherry did was he did break open some distribution channels over in Asia for them that will probably be pretty lucrative over the next couple of years. I think that net effect, Cherry did some positive things. Maybe his role was wrong. I think the Fortnite stuff got them into some other channels. It's all helpful. I mean, there's things there. The problem is you've got this baked in incompetence in the company that is just, even if they have these advantages, are they going to take advantage of it? Like, their webtoons deal arguably is getting them a decent amount of attention and material. DC also ignores that one. So, and again, to be clear, definitely not for me. Those books that they're putting out there at Batman Family, absolutely not something I would enjoy. But, they're getting attention from it. Can they actually capitalize on what was done? Doesn't seem like it.
So we do have a couple of super chats I want to hit real quick, and then we'll kind of wrap this one up. We got Jordan Fugate, also known as Jordan Fugate. Wes, my wife has me in Hobby Lobby this morning, and you guys are getting me through it. Truly doing the Lord's work. And I miss Hobby Lobby.
I think Hobby Lobby is great.
I want to go back. Hobby Lobby is great, but I hope you're having a good time, and we're glad that we are here with you to get you through these difficult times, sir.
Hey, Wes, why? Speaking of, there's Hobby Lobbies all over the place, as you know, in this area. Why are there $50 billion stores in this place? Like, does anybody else see it? Like there's a dollar store like Starbucks
is more of a Texan than I am. Why are there so many dollar stores, Josh?
I look, I could maybe there's so many dollar stores because of the average household income in the area. Like, in certain areas in Texas, your average household income, there are homes that make less than $20,000. So I would say that's probably why. I will add just a fun little notation here. There's one time that I was eating at a fast food restaurant, and the conversation next to me was, quote, "So I went to the dollar store today. Which one, Dollar Tree or Dollar General? Dollar General. Okay, good." So that should tell you something. Perch, welcome to Texas.
Yeah,
y'all. I miss the taquerias the most. That's what I really, really love. But that's neither here nor there. We've got Mr. DC Comics. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It's very generous. $20 super chat. The real question is, will Discovery be beholden to the ESG governance? My guess is they probably will, and nothing will change, especially if Disney is doing the same. I'm not fully bought into the ESG stuff, to be completely honest. Is anyone else?
I think there's some big misunderstandings about what the ESG does.
Would you like to elaborate or no?
No, I did. No. Look, I don't think it's what a lot of people think. I don't beholden. People can buy in or buy out. I think that there's other things at work. I don't think the ESG drives this. I think it's individuals who are trying to get different pieces. But I mean, it's a bigger topic, and there's been a lot of information thrown out there, and it's one of those things like touching the third rail. If you talk about this, you get people jump all over you. So it needs to be explored. You and I can team up. We'll do like a 5-part web series on it. It'll be exciting.
Hey, that sounds like fun. This is something, I would like to dive into, but there's so much to it, actually. So there's no real, we have no idea. Well, this kind of leads into another question that I have, Perch. So I feel like we're seeing stagnation in DC. I personally haven't really liked the last year and a half of DC Comics. Basically, once Dark Knight's death metal starts, I think DC Comics starts trending down really, really fast. We know that when the Discovery Warner merger happens, they're not going to be able to look at everything at once. They're going to look at the key properties that they've acquired that are merging in there and what they're going to do with it. DC Comics is going to be at the bottom of the list. I don't think anything changes for like at least 2 years.
Yeah, I think they're going to clock along with like short-term thinking, certainly for the rest of this year. And I think it all depends on how quickly Discovery moves. I don't think the Discovery action by itself triggers a lot of change, but I think a lot of the people who are just sitting and waiting for this to play out, that's why we're stagnating. Is like everybody's just it's like holding your breath. That's where it's at. So until there's some certainty, you're just going to see this stuff continue. And so my hope is that we get to that certainty as fast as possible. Whatever it happens to be, we need to get to a new landing place so people can actually start to plan their careers and come or go or whatever they're going to do. But this limbo is killing us.
What do you think about that one on Josh? Obviously, once they do the takeover, they're going to start looking at these entities. I think DC Comics are trying to like spike some numbers so they can show like they have more revenue maybe coming in than they possibly have in the past. But I think there's a good chance nothing happens short term.
Yeah, I mean, in general, when you have larger takeovers like this, the short term changes aren't. You don't really see them. Usually, it takes a little time to kind of see the effect cascade down. I think the one thing we have to look at and wonder is if they're going to care. We kind of mentioned Disney, and Disney hasn't completely gotten their hands in the comics yet. I don't know if Discovery will do the same. They might in terms of a management situation, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. So I could see it going either way, honestly.
Do you have any thoughts on this one, Gabe? I know you had some broad general stuff you put out on social media regarding Daniel Cherry leaving and like the bigger implications.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was what we already covered as far as his absence or his departure or however you want to term it. When Discovery comes in, whenever that happens to be, the timelines I think are shifting a little bit. I'm hearing June, but maybe it's sooner, maybe it's later, who knows. A lot of times when you have an M&A situation, which is mergers and acquisitions, a lot of the short-term changes don't happen on the front-end production areas. They happen in the back end. Because they're looking for redundancies. You don't need 2 HR departments. You don't need 2 accounting and finance departments. You don't need of all the back end stuff that are just the administrative components that run a company. Short term, that's where you're probably going to see the most changes right away, or at least very close to right away. But that has very little to no impact on comics and comics production, unless Discovery comes in with their own set of HR guidance, policies, and rules that they're going to replace and then immediately apply to DC as a whole. I mean, one of the things that we've lamented many times, just on this stream alone and also elsewhere, is that the way DC HR treats contractors and internal employees and social media policies and what they can and can't say, how they can and cannot behave, and who they hire and versus not, is chaos. Right? They pay very little attention to keeping structure and sanity and decorum and professional behavior and all that in check, depending on who you talk to and what day and anything else. If Discovery comes in and one of the first things they change on the back office or the back end side of things is the HR department, and Discovery has a much more, I would say, established and structured HR organization, and they immediately apply that to DC, that could be an interesting change. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know what that change could have looked like. But if there's going to be a net effect, that could be one way where you could see something sooner rather than later, where you start to see behavioral changes on who they hire, when they hire them, when they let them go, what they are allowed to say, what they're not allowed to say, and that could be a net result short term of the Discovery merger. That's that's prognostication. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. But the back end stuff is usually what gets swapped out first, because you don't need that redundancy. And if if Discovery says you're going to use our HR department, and oh, by the way, we have all these rules that you don't have, well, guess what? Now you're going to start using our rules, and that could lead to some interesting changes down the road very quickly.
Those are some smart comments. I totally agree. That's exactly what I've seen as well with M&A and different kind of acquisitions that take place. You absolutely start from the back. So I think that's what we could expect. I think the interesting thing, if you want to try and predict what will happen, is look into how Discovery handles independent contractors. They obviously have a lot of filmmakers and other people that come in, different people that create content for them. So what are their contracts like? Are their ICs bound by any kind of social media policy? How are they paid? One thing I know that is true about Discovery is several of their ICs have profit sharing baked into some of the work they do. So that would potentially be very interesting on the financial side. What does all this stuff look like? So I think we can do some work now to dig into how Discovery handles their ICs and those people, and use that to say, if they truly get sucked in, like you say, they move the HR departments to merge because that's redundancy. You will see them start to look for some efficiencies in contracts. Legal is another group. They typically like to merge. So what will this look like? What will MSAs look like? What will all these things look like in the future? That could potentially be very interesting. And if profit sharing comes to DC, that would be a pretty big game changer to how contracts work.
Absolutely. So as we're wrapping this up, I do want to say thank you to everyone that's joining us. We almost hit 400 live viewers a couple of times. Right now we got 163 likes. So if you haven't given the video a like, definitely give us a thumbs up. Let everyone know that we're having a good conversation. Does anyone have any final statements before I get to this last super chat and we move on to the next topic? Beautiful. So we've got Rodney Sanders II. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Wes, I'm a big fan. Wanted to show support finally. Question to save DC. Name 2 people alongside Jeff Johns that could save DC. So I've already recorded this video with Dylan, who obviously is with us, and Jeff Johns is definitely a part of that video. So I don't want to ruin or spoil what we talked about. So Josh, besides Jeff Johns, can you name 2 other people that should be brought into the fold that you think would make a real long-term impact on DC for the better?
I mean, if we're talking long-term impact, we're going to want to see someone that can come in and take control of just the storytelling. And that's where it's going to kind of come in from, and hold your editors accountable. And I would say keep someone that's close to DC and understands the characters. I throw this name out there a lot, but Pete Tomasi, he's got a history as an editor. He's got history of writing. He understands the comics. He would not be a bad get. I don't know if they can get him after what they did to him. But yeah, Pete Tomasi and maybe even someone like Grant Morrison. It's like they're 2 people that understand the Gabe's making a
Grant. No,
after that Superman book.
Hold on. I'm just gonna make a comment. So there was a point in time when Grant was coming back. I think it was 2018 SDCC. He was coming back to do the Green Lantern book, and there was a conversation between him and Dan DiDio on stage about the importance of continuity and establishing a plan for your line. So the conversation he had there makes me think that if he were in that type of position, he would be less inclined to be like, how weird can I be? Because Grant Morrison's weird. I think he understands and respects, like, okay, if we're going to do the whole line, I need to have some type of structure here. But yeah, just someone that's going to come in, respect the customers, respect continuity, and understand the importance of continuity. That's what I would say.
Grant tried it. He tried running heavy metal. Didn't work.
All right.
Yeah, the reason I'm grimacing at Grant Morrison is that Green Lantern run was just bizarre.
I did not like it.
and it was bizarre because it told a very simple story in a very complicated way. And that goes to your ability to communicate story. Now, if you, to your paying public, are communicating a convoluted, chaotic, strange, bizarre story that the public can't follow, what does that say to your ability to communicate to your personnel internally? And that's what that gives me pause. That's not to say you couldn't do it. And his accent is very thick, to be honest. But
I think the biggest problem is Grant couldn't pass the drug test.
Well,
Hey, the-
Discovery may
that's-
not care. That's
Yeah.
but look, if you're talking about a structure of 3, and I do think a team, I would get Jeff Johns to be there as a continuity to the media efforts, who understands kind of the architecture there. I'd put him in that role. I'd hire Jim Shooter and have him run editorial. And I don't think Jim Shooter is a solution to everything, but in this particular case, where you have editors who are not responding to people, you have people who are all but asleep on the job, Shooter's particular style probably would be very helpful to cure that and mix things up a little bit. And then I'm with you. I would relaunch Vertigo, because I do think there's money in that. And I think if you're bursting open distribution chains in other areas, I think Vertigo would be a smart thing to do. I would have Grant Morrison be the editor for that. So I would have a team of Jeff Johns on top. I put Jim Shooter as your head of editorial for DC proper. I'd have Morrison, who was helping feed and get Vertigo up and running again. That would be my trifecta, and I'd build from there.
Dang, Dylan, we got most of that, right?
Yeah, we got most of that.
We got a lot of that video. It should be out. I think it's going to be out on Tuesday afternoon. So I definitely want to say thank you very much to Rodney for supporting the channel, and everyone that supported the channel with super chats. And we are going to move on. We've got other stuff going on. This is more of a confirmation. The rumor had been out there. I'd heard this actually for quite some time, that IDW was going to be losing the Hasbro line, specifically Transformers, G.I. Joe. And it sounds like it's been confirmed now.
Thank God.
Josh, what do you think about this? Obviously IDW has to the end of the year to kind of figure something out about their structure, if they can last that long, because they really do lean on these licensed property that will live in Star Wars, Marvel, action, as well as the Hasbro stuff.
I mean, look, to put it lightly, put a fork in them, they're done. I don't see much of a hope of them coming back from this. If they are going to have some type of hope of coming back, they're going to have to go so small and play it incredibly smart, and then try to rebuild themselves back up over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know if they're going to make the right decisions to do that. So maybe they have some game plan planned out. I don't think so. I don't think we've seen anything to say otherwise. So.
All right, Dylan. So you haven't been happy with the G.I. Joes, Transformers, or any of that stuff?
No, I'm a diehard G.I. Joe fan, and IDW has not had anything good for G.I. Joe in years. They have Larry Hama on there, and he's a legend. Obviously, respect Larry Hama, but he ran out of ideas years ago. He should not be writing G.I. Joe anymore. And the other G.I. Joe books, they've had they have the main A Real American Hero with Larry Hama, which has been terrible. And then they've just been relaunching the other G.I. Joe line for the past decade. Every 10 issues, they're okay, we're going to reboot and call it something else. This will stick this time. Not since they had Chuck Dixon running it has G.I. Joe been good. It's been horrible. And I love G.I. Joe, and I'm so upset that we haven't had any good G.I. Joe content in a long time. And so them finally losing the G.I. Joe license is very exciting to me. And I hope someone good that knows what they're doing gets it.
Well, the rumor is Skybound is in the running for that. Obviously, that would be Robert Kirkman. But, hey, if Robert Kirkman takes over, he might just screw somebody out over their creator rights or something, right?
Hey, you know what? It's par for the course for anything. Anybody that holds the license for triples. Pat Lee, IDW, everyone else they've ended up fucked as the result of having the Transformers license. All of them. Who did it? Devil's Due. They went from having the G.I. Joe license to printing fucking Alexander Ocasio-Cortez comics.
I don't know, Perch, is the Hasbro license a scarlet letter? Is it bad luck?
I mean, it did okay for Marvel. I don't know. I think you can, it can work. I think you need a company with some stability to it. Look, I mean, it's all but a locked deal now that Kirkman is getting it. It will go to Kirkman. It will be Skybound. He will tee up relationships with Amazon to put media there. That's where it's likely to go. Yeah.
Remember when Marvel lost the license? That was when they were going through bankruptcy.
Yeah, but I don't think
being bankrupt.
You kind of broke up there, but I don't think that it was the bankruptcy had nothing to do with Transformers G.I. Joe. I mean, they were shedding licenses at that point, but I mean that was due to other things.
It's a joke about it being a bad luck.
Sure. I think Kirkman can do good things with it. I think that them putting up an artist I almost put the name out there that I've heard that they're trying to pitch with it is a really good top Marvel artist. Would love to see him do some Transformer stuff. That'd be cool. I'm curious to see it. If it goes to Kirkman and he's able to do something with it, more power to him. I love it.
What do you think this means for IDW? Do they have a plan? Are they going to be able? Do they have enough time to come up with a plan where they're not leaning on the licenses so much and they're doing more original IP?
I mean, that they hired like a bunch of people to come in to try and push creator and original stuff. But this was a while back now, right? I mean, they hired people off DC. I would have expected to have seen something by now.
Yep.
I'm excited for the Killlock sequel, but I don't know what's going on there. What do you think about this game? Is IDW dud? Stick a fork in them?
I mean, I hear everybody talking about Transformers and G.I. Joe. I want to know what's going to happen with My Little Pony. I'm being serious when I say that.
Yeah,
My Little Pony is like that huge. That is bank right there. That is not that's not a small property to get your hands on. So even though there's a lot of chatter about G.I. Joe, and Larry Hama ran that for years and did a phenomenal job. I mean, if you want to put the Aubrey Sitterson stuff aside, for example, put that aside, and then Transformers, you've got the movies. The fact that IDW could not capitalize on the Bumblebee movie, which was a hit by pretty much all accounts, that says something about IDW's not willingness, but their ability to capitalize. But it's the same problem we see with all the publishers.
Yeah,
Marvel has a big hit, they can't capitalize on it. DC has almost a hit, but they can't capitalize on it. But so we see all the publishers have the same problem. They want to be cross-platform, but they only understand their one platform and don't know how to. They know how to get the license out there, but they don't know how to get them to work together. And that's just a failing, I think, across the board. But IDW losing Hasbro is a huge deal. And I'm being serious when I say everybody's talking about G.I. Joe and Transformers, but My Little Pony is massive. That's a lot of money right there. And so when they lose that, I'm assuming they're losing that. I don't think I've heard an official word on that.
They're not. They My Little Pony is staying with it, but it seems like these contracts, based on what they're going away, because they lost Magic the Gathering first, and it was kind of the first one on the cycle. So it feels like if they're losing all the others, Hasbro's not just going to keep that one there. And you're right, My Little Pony makes them a decent amount of cash, particularly in reprints and graphic novels and trades and things, or trades, not graphic novel. But it would be bad to lose it, but it's almost certain that they will lose it. It's just that would happen sometime, and I think in summer 2023 is what I saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is something that we mentioned in a prior stream that I was on when the kind of the rumblings of it came up, even though it wasn't official. Is at that time they had just made the announcement that they had lost Star Wars. They had lost the Star Wars property, but it wasn't that they lost Star Wars. It was that they lost Star Wars, and then Lucasfilm immediately took that license and put it over with Dark Horse. So it wasn't that they were trying to bring something in, and Marvel wanted to try and do something differently by publishing its own version. It's they took the license away to give it to somebody else and to me that publicly speaks like a loss of faith. Like they've lost any confidence in IDW's ability to do something with the license. So in an internal contract negotiation point of view, that looks very damaging to me.
Oh, for sure.
And so for IDW to say, are they done? Their stock price right now is about $225, when it was up around the $55 range just 2 or 3 years ago. So if you bought stock about 2 or 3 years ago, you took a bath on that. You took a bath on that. So are they making money from a publicly trading standpoint? No, they're in a bad place. So if you go back and read their property and their stock reports, where they're giving to their stockholders as far as our strategy and our vision, everything in those last few reports have said we're trying to do cross-platform, we're trying to make more deals like Netflix, we're trying to do more things with other streaming properties, we're trying to make some more movie deals, but they haven't been able to make that play out. And if they can't make that play out, and they're what they're telling their stockholders is a focus on cross-media platform, not on comics, just using comics as a sandbox to develop properties that they can push to other areas. Well, right now, what they're saying is they can't do both, they can't do either. And if you can't do either, then where are you going? And that's a bad place to be for a publicly traded company.
It's crazy. My youngest Well, I'm not my youngest. I guess he's my oldest, but my son is an enormous Transformers fan. He loved Bumblebee.
Mhm.
And IDW doesn't produce a single Transformers comic I could buy for him. Like, how do you not produce, like, it's based on a toy company, Perch. Why are they not producing a Transformers comic for kids?
I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's you see this all throughout the industry. I think people vastly misunderstand what they're working on. I think they have a view of what the best part of the property is, and it's stuck in their head, and it does not reflect reality. Somebody asked a question. I did a video on it, like, what happens when a creator believes like the very best part of a comic to them is not what the audience likes. He uses this example of, what if somebody created this superhero dark and gritty like the Punisher, and everybody loved this kid, like, oh, it was great, kind of pulp, blood, action, everything. But the secret identity of this superhero was he was a chef. And the comic got really, really popular. And so the creator, the lesson they took away from that was, man, I need to show more comics of that character cooking. And so they start doing graphic novels of nothing but preparing food, and they get rid of the superhero bit, and then are confused why the fans are upset. I know that's a long-winded analogy, but that feels like what goes on with Transformers here. People are like, I like that as a kid. Wouldn't it be really great if they were, talking about things that I care about in my mid-20s while I'm watching Netflix? And it's like, no, you grew up. The core audience still likes it as it's toys, it's action, it's the stuff that the movies tap into. Michael Bay is a goofy director, and yet he's able to pull it off because he knows what people are wanting to go for. It's wacky. I talked myself out of that.
Well, part of the other problem is a lot of writers in comics and in Hollywood in general, just in media in general, they don't understand how to write a story that has both appeal to adult readers and young readers, that is not inappropriate for young readers. They just don't. They go to the two extremes with either something that is so kiddie that not even children want to read it because it's too immature for them, or too adult and it loses any appeal to children.
Yeah.
We do have a few super chats I want to get into before we talk about the Marvel stuff. We got Sigma Comics. Keep it tuned to Thinking Critical. Keep your ears peeled because this is where it's at. Support these creators and YouTubers. Problems everywhere with the big two. Indies will carry the day. Back Here Comes Calico on Kickstarter. Don't delay. The 4th issue of Here Comes Calico is available right now on Kickstarter. Definitely want to check that out. And I definitely want to say thank you very much to Sigma Comics. Really appreciate that.
Hey, this is a great guy, by the way. I met you at Emerald City Comic Con, shook your hand. Great guy, great thing he's trying to do here. So all the success in the world. Very, very great with customers, by the way. People coming in and that interaction was wonderful. Absolutely great company.
You know what the best part about that Perch is, right? HH is a trained boxer. He used to fight MMA. So if you get out of line, which is going to take
I was pretty confident he could have kicked my ass. Yeah,
he'll choke you out.
Yeah, that was for sure. Yeah.
He was one step below the UFC, I believe, at one point in the early days of MMA. So yeah,
I went and saw him a couple times. I know Joe and I went over there to talk to him for a bit. I think Joe went with him, but he's a great guy and it's a great company.
Yep, love talking to HH. We got Johnny J and Boogie here saying, I stopped buying Transformers when Whisper Network Administrator Marguerite Scott shipped the Combaticons until all are one. I'm assuming they're talking about shipping, like the weird stuff that they do in Tumblr, Perch?
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry,
I did not read this comic, but I'm assuming bolts went into holes.
Oh come on, man! What the hell happened here, Doc?
It was like a goddamn weirdo, like kinky IKEA instruction manual, putting tab A into slot B, and then sometimes tab A right up against tab A. I don't understand it.
Can Transformers play tummy sticks? What the hell's going on here?
Apparently so.
My goodness, why are they shipping Transformers?
They're robots. Robots don't fuck.
Shock absorbers, very important there.
We also talked about G.I. Joe and Transformers, and I don't quite recall off the top of my head if this is also Hasbro, but I'd be very interested to understand the current state of what's going on with Mega Man and Sonic. Because
are they shipping them too?
sparsely and rarely, but they
My
do hold those
goodness.
licenses, and the last Sonic the Hedgehog movie was well received, and they've got a sequel coming out. And again, another circumstance where they could capitalize on the success of that media property. They didn't really do that, but they are still kind of sporadically publishing Sonic and Mega
They got
Man.
Sonic the
And if they-
Imposter going out right now.
Yeah, and if they lose track of that too, I mean that would be really bad.
In fairness, though, Sonic, it really only needs to sell in video games. So anything else is gravy.
Well, yeah, but the comics are actually pretty good. If you want to read a license from IDW, you could definitely do worse than that one. We've got Jimmy Jam Boogie again. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. There were whole issues of Transformers where no one transformed. That feels like a
Well,
problem.
again, who wants to see that?
Like, who came for that?
Yeah,
It's time to cook. Like,
it's time to cook. And by the way, Doc,
I know.
Japan would like a word
Yeah,
about your statement.
I know.
of robots.
Well, they're fucking wrong too.
Well,
I watched Heavy Metal, and there's some weird stuff going on with the robot
Yeah.
there, Doc. That's
trust me,
American.
those robots, those exhaust pipes are well oiled.
Wayne Kramer, what are tummy sticks? You don't want to know.
Oh yeah, dude, that
You don't
is
wanna know.
definitely not an appropriate. Urban Dictionary is your friend.
Yeah, why would you go to a Transformers comic where to see the characters transform? I just feel like everyone loses the plot. Comic books don't have to be this difficult, you know? So, does anyone else have anything to say about the IDW thing before we get to this Captain America news?
I'm just wondering what they're doing with all those new people they just hired. They're hiring executives and senior editors, and they're doing all kinds of promotions and things. And what are they producing that justifies that kind of hiring change?
Look, at this point, the only thing that I can assume is they're hiring their buddies to give them some paychecks before everything goes out the door, before the lights get shut off.
They hired some editors out of the Batman office, like multiple ones. I mean,
got
some
Mark
pretty
Doyle.
Yeah, Mark Doyle's over there. He doesn't suck. Tom King got removed from some stuff, but I mean, he's pretty solid. I'm with you. I don't know what they're doing with all these people.
I just think that they're trying to get as many people, as many paychecks as possible before somebody shuts the lights out.
I think it's just the illusion of success, and they're hoping somebody will buy it. Like what happened with who just got sold? Was it Dark Horse?
Yeah, Dark Horse. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah. So let's move over to Marvel Comics. Captain America is relaunching. I don't know about you, Dylan, but I didn't even realize that Sam Wilson was still Captain America. I thought Steve Rogers was, but apparently they're going to be co-Captain Americas. I say if you have two Captain Americas, you have no Captain Americas. What say you, Dylan?
I agree. It makes no sense, especially because Falcon is not like a guy that does. Well, Sam isn't a guy without his own mantle. He's Falcon. You're downplaying the mantle of Falcon, acting like it doesn't matter and it's pointless by making him Captain America. It makes no sense to me why there needs to be two Captain Americas. Sam Wilson is not someone that needs the mantle of Captain America, to where that is Steve Rogers. I don't see anyone who asked for this, but if you look at like the past decade or so of Captain America, it's very clear that Marvel has no clue what the hell they're doing with him. We haven't had anything good with Captain America since like the beginning of the Remender run. I like some of that, but since then, we have not had anything good with Captain America. And if you look at the names they put to write Captain America, it makes no sense. It never gets you excited. You never read a solicitation for Captain America and go, oh, that guy's going to kill it. You go, who the hell is this? Or that guy, I've read some of his books. They're horrible. Why is he getting rewarded with Captain America? Marvel doesn't know what they're doing with Cap. And this is just par for the course at this point.
You're not
It's
wrong.
kind of weird, Perks. They haven't been able to produce one good Captain America series in a decade, and they're going to do two now.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. In the history of all the Marvel comics, they have never had two Captain America books, one with Sam Wilson, one with Steve Rogers, running at the same time. And the Sam Wilson one, we're told, is going to have the completely new and original story of people not accepting Sam Wilson as Captain America. And he'll have to fight against that. And we've never seen this before from Marvel ever in this time period. The Steve Rogers one is going to involve some stuff behind the scenes, some gritty kind of spy throw. We've never seen that either. It is a new and bold time for Marvel with completely original ideas.
I feel like the editorial office recently had a massive head trauma and like is suffering like amnesia. I saw this movie. It was called Overboard. Goldie Hawn was better. So no, this is stupid. Terrible again. Again and again and again.
Tevye, that was sarcasm, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to guess, what it feels like is that this was meant to come out when it came out or come out sooner. Because I'm guessing this is, again, yet another attempt where they were trying to synergize it against the Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney Plus series.
100%.
And then maybe they missed the mark on the timing. Like, well, we can't dump this, or because the pandemic screwed up the Disney Plus show release schedule. Things released out of order than they had originally planned. And so if I were kind of to put some money on it, I would say they were trying to get the comic to come out at the same time the show was originally intended to come out. And because of the rescheduling, it missed, or they just didn't time it right, or something along those lines. And so they're trying to capitalize on something where they just missed the mark on the timing.
Legitimate question: have they ever timed it right? Because they haven't yet.
I mean, look, what I will say is, and I'm one usually to kind of like chastise publishers for not having their timing right. But in terms of the films and TV shows right now, it's a losing game. Everything's shifting so much. I do think this is lined up with what they're doing in the MCU, but I think it's more so to try to lead into them doing the Captain America 4, because I'm sure we're going to see Sam in some of these other films coming up as Captain America. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier was actually supposed to air prior to when it did. Everything got pushed back like a year. So I don't think it's necessarily timing with that show. I think it's just they're trying to quote unquote synergize here. And it's just, I don't know. It seems like it's bad form across the board.
Why can't they get Captain America right, Gabe? It's not hard to put a good writer on this. Lanzig and Kelly have sucked a lot of things. Their King the Conqueror was okay or good, but their Gotham City Garage and a lot of their Star Trek stuff absolutely sucks. This other dude that they put on the other book, he's only written one comic that I know of, and it's that Black Panther Legends that no one likes.
Yeah,
both Steve Rogers Captain America and Falcon Captain America, just Sam. They're two sides of the same coin, narratively speaking. In both cases, the rut that they seem to be stuck in is justification. For Steve Rogers, Captain America, he seems to always be stuck in this rut where he's trying to justify being the hero of a country that he no longer approves of. In the Sam Wilson Captain America, he seems to be constantly stuck in this rut when he's being Captain America, not Falcon, stuck in this rut of he has to prove that and justify his role as Captain America. So in both cases, they're doing it different ways for different reasons, but they both seem to be stuck in the cycle of I have to justify my existence, or America has to justify its existence to me at the same time. And it's a bizarre kind of loop that just keeps repeating over and over again. If you go back to the Captain America, forget about punching Hitler. Can we just move past that? That was like in the very beginning. Yes, it was propaganda. It was jingoistic or whatever you want to call it, and it did its job, and that's fine. Everybody likes that, but there's decades worth of story that comes after that. So can we stop pretending like that's the only thing of Captain America's history that counts?
Well, sure. And by the way,
all the kinds of things that we get into, but they've just stopped telling adventure stories. It's like, well, there's too much going on in America, so we have to justify why he has to still be this icon of America that he's no longer proud of anymore. It doesn't make sense for who he is as a character.
You have an entire company full of people that hate America and confused on why they can't write Captain America. Shocking.
But I mean, so first off, I mean, that Hitler cover, people do realize that was the cover. There's not actually a moment in the comic where Captain America punches Hitler. You do I know you realize, but people keep bringing this up like it's some huge thing, but there's no scene in that comic where Cap punches Hitler. It's just on the cover. It's as relevant as that Superman Son of Kal-El cover where Superman's protesting. None of these things actually appear in the comic. So to your point, I think is absolutely right. Stop using that as the litmus test of this entire character and everything it's about, because it didn't actually occur. So what are we even doing at this point?
Doc, why can't they just put Cap on ice? It's not like he's a big seller for him anyway. If they don't like the characters, just put him away for a while.
Honestly, I would prefer it at this point. Let Sam run around being a terrible fucking Captain America that has no business doing the job. Let a bunch of people shit all over Steve's legacy. Just kill Steve or put him on ice. Send him to fucking Mars for all I care. Put him on. He can go be Captain Universe and flying around on the space shuttle. I don't really give a shit anymore.
Cap on Mars.
Cap works best in two ways. Cap works best in two ways. A, as leader, sort of strategic, tactical figurehead of the Avengers. He works great in that role, and there's no reason why there should be a need to change that. You change what the Avengers, Jason Aaron aside, you give the Avengers good stories, and you put Captain America in the lead, then you're doing okay. The second is if you put him at the ground level, which is even though he's super strong and everything else, in a lot of ways he's very much a not a street level character, but just like a ground level character. Put him in tactical operations. I don't mean in a GI Joe sense. I mean like in military stuff where he's involved in conflicts. Well, yeah, but there's always room to do more creative things with that.
No, what I mean is they already did that whenever they aged him up and made him like Captain. Well, first they did it with the Captain Rogers when Bucky was running around as Cap, and then they aged him up and did it again and let Sam run around as Cap. It doesn't work. People want to see Steve out there being Captain America. I'm sorry. There's only one Captain America anyone will ever accept, and it's Steve Rogers. Stop trying to do two.
I mean, if you're going to do a transfer like that, you have to take your time and you have to really build to it. What people forget, the first time they did it with Sam and they blew it completely is Reminder spent like 2.5 years getting there. And then, and set it up for a very kind of inspirational moment. Spencer then immediately took into, let's make it a commentary about racism and that he's not worthy, and then sabotage it by bringing back Steve anyway and undoing all of that. And that all happened in less time than the buildup that Reminder took. If you're going to do these moves, and I'm personally of the opinion, like I think many of you are, that I like the Falcon. I think it's a perfectly good identity, and I think there's nothing to be ashamed of that. I think it's pretty awesome that he can be the Falcon and do what he does. But if you are going to make this move, at least put the work in. This is I think some people have said in the chat, Sam just kind of reaccepted the Falcon identity and said, yeah, I'm this is what I am. This is I'm going to make this great. And now we're supposed to buy that in a month's time. It's like I'm Captain America again in this Zero issue. Like none of that's going to work well. You have to build this stuff.
And that even sends a worse message, because what that says is Falcon is okay, but becoming Captain America is an upgrade. Mm-hmm. So that somehow now Falcon is less than Captain America.
Yep.
It makes the Falcon identity seem like it's second fiddle, a sidekick, or not as good. To me, that sends an even worse message, because it says that, I can't be the hero I want to be until I upgrade to what Captain America is, because he's better.
On what's worse is they had to change his personality, so where like Sam Wilson wasn't a good enough character to be Captain America. So as soon as he becomes Cap, he has to become a completely different person, just as far as the way he speaks and in the way he talks about things.
No, it's destructive, and it kind of like Miles Morales with Spider-Man. You may say, I want to have Miles as Spider-Man. The problem is you have 40 plus years of people knowing Peter Parker as Spider-Man. So all you've done is you've saddled this character who does have the potential to kind of grow on their own with this baggage that doesn't help. Now you're going to get people coming out and saying, well, are you into the white Captain America, the black Captain America? That's terrible. Why would you put that on Sam, a fully fleshed out great character? That's stupid to do that. The title does not build him up. It only drags him down. It does the opposite of what they're saying.
Yep.
In fairness, though, let's look at it this way. They want to put Sam as a lead character. They want him to carry his own book. Problem is he can't. He's got 60 years or 50 years proving he can't carry his own book. So they need to they think that they're doing him a favor by letting him ride the coattails of Steve by taking Steve's name and trading on his name. But none of the fans actually accept it. They think they're doing him a favor. They're not.
So we do have some super chats.
No, go ahead. I'll sit after.
I have some super chats I need to get to. This one, I'm apparently pissing off Paul. He says, names under the picks, Wes. So if the only way I can get the names there is if I take the banner away, and then if new people come in, they won't see the banner. And he came back and he says, "Wes, I love you, man, but if you don't put the names under the host profiles, I might come get you." Like, I'm sorry, buddy, but I'll do it for you, but it's only going to be for a little. Well, as soon as I put super chats up, it's not going to be there anymore. But it is it's not as easy as it seems. There they are, but it's going to go away almost immediately, unfortunately. So I do appreciate it. I've got the names here for you, but I hope you're reading now. We got Lade Kramer. Should we be feeling nervous about the Spidey launch?
I'm not.
Doc, you're the Spidey guy.
I'm not. No, I'm perfectly fine with it. Zeb Wells is a very competent superhero writer. He is not the flashiest guy. He does not have the name recognition, but he is a very competent, can write a very consistent and well thought out superhero story. And that's what I think most people want in a Spider-Man comic, especially the lead Spider-Man comic. I mean, there's a lot of like David Michelini he's not the biggest, most flashiest name. He wrote Spider-Man, a great long sprawling Spider-Man story for like a decade. Very
Dan
well.
Slott.
No, Dan Slott.
All right, Doc, you're feeling good about it. You're not nervous, right?
And Zeb Wells already had a history writing Spider-Man. I've liked he was part of like the 3 times monthly Spider-Man back in the post One More Day.
All right, Doc.
So no, I'm not concerned about it.
There we go. There we got Terrence Bernard. It could work if Steve was part of a Black Ops series under a Marvel Knights or Max series with the right writer. I don't know. Who do you think, Dylan? Who do you think's the right writer? I personally think they should have put Patrick Gleason on it. But if you can't put Patrick, who would you put on a Steve Rogers series?
Steve Rogers series. I'm trying to think of who. Well, actually, you know what? Chip Zdarsky. I love what he did with what was that like maxi series? No, that maxi series that he had where he wrote Cap in it and Namor. No, that he wrote
you're
Cap
talking
and
about
Namor.
the Invaders.
Invaders, that's it. Yeah, his voice for Cap in that book I thought was great. I would love to see Zdarsky write a Captain America book.
I'd like to see Gleason paired up with Priest and have Priest write it. I think he would write a killer Cap that would be different. And I think Gleason would be a good partner in both writing and then drawing it. I think that would be pretty interesting. And yeah, whoever's saying Roger Stern and John Byrne. Yeah, do that.
Yeah. But no, Priest would be a great choice for Cap. Alternatively, I do agree with Chip Zdarsky. I think Cap does best when he has somebody with a more crime like taste to his writing. Chip's got a good bit of that. And I really love the Captain America and the Falcon series that Priest did with Bart Sears back in the 2000s. So
all good choices. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, Terrence. We got Wesley D. You have a fantastic name. I just want to put that one out there. Good morning. Sincere question. Do you think there's any chance we make it 12 issues in either Cap book without racism or privilege being discussed? Absolutely not. I don't think you make it 12. Yeah, I don't think you make it 12 issues on either series before they're rebooted. To be honest,
I don't think you can make it 12 panels without the Sam book being about race.
The Sam book said, in the solicitations are going to talk about this in issue 1.
Yeah. So that's not happening. This is a mini series for sure, right, Perch? They're just not telling us.
I think everything is a mini series. There are no ongoing series. Let's not kid ourselves. Everything is a mini series now.
The closest thing is ASM.
Yeah, which was relaunched.
Rebooting.
Yeah, which is rebooting again.
By the way, I have to admit, so I've been the defender on this channel from time to time about John Romita Jr. I in my memory, I can picture him doing that Uncanny X-Men run with Claremont way back in the day, Mutant Massacre. I love that stuff. His run on Daredevil, I thought was great. I think he did a hell of a Spider-Man back in the day. The free comic book day cover that they showcased that Romita did.
Inspire.
Well, look at Venom. Like, what is going on with Venom's ass and legs? Like, it's bizarre.
JR never did Venom in any of his runs on Spider-Man. Remember that. So
the
this
leg is backwards. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not even Venom. His leg is bent like.
I know, but did you see the promo for the Carlos Pacheco cover for Maestro World War M? The fucking hand is backwards.
Sure, why not?
Holding
I think
Namor's leg.
I think it's less of a character thing with Ramita and more like you can blatantly tell when Ramita cares about what he's doing and when he doesn't care about what he's doing. If he thinks the story's good, he comes. And I'm not the biggest fan of his look or aesthetic. Like I respect it. I think the man's an incredible freaking storyteller, though, and you can tell when he decides to put effort in. And I'll say, like most recently, his work on the Silencer, excellent, and then the work that he did with Bendis, terrible. You know, I mean, just.
Yeah, Junior's work on Superman was not good. It was hatchline crazy. I don't know if he was stuttering or what was going on when he was drawing those lines, but it was
bad.
But to Wesley's,
he still has it. It's not his age. I mean, I think Silencer, to your point, was good. I think he did kick ass and his style was good. But this, what are you doing with the what's going on? I'm sorry, it has to be said. What's going on with Venom's ass?
Maybe it's upside down.
Where is his ass?
Where's his badakadonk? Does he not do squats? What is going on here?
The opposite Yara floor right here.
He's honestly, all that is Spider-Man with Venom's head. He literally just copied almost. He like mirrored the legs. I think that's what he did. I think he he just mirrored the images.
This is way more to it than that, but.
It's painful for me to see because I do love this guy. I've got original art of this guy. I love this guy. I don't get this at all.
He can't draw Venom. But the Spider-Man part's pretty good. I like that.
But back to the point, and something I just want to chime in, and it actually pairs really well with that super chat you just had put up, is I believe that Sam can carry his own book. If you put a writer on it, and if you put a writer on it that cares about the character and wants to do something great with it. I'm a huge movie fan as well. In particular, one of my favorite eras of film is blaxploitation, and I love that whole era of just like Shaft and Foxy Brown and everything that goes on with that. That's not to say you do that character in that way, but that is to say that you can have a lead black character carry a property and do something very entertaining, very visual, very engaging, and very captivating with it if you put the right creative team on it. So I think Sam can carry his own book if you get the right team on it. Now, having said that, don't hate me on this, Marvel in particular seems to have a problem with having black characters as leads and has had a problem for a very long time. I'm talking years. They can't seem to do anything with Storm. They can't do anything with Luke Cage. They can't do anything with Blade. They can't do anything with Sam Wilson. They're trying to do something with Black Panther, and it's wildly uneven. And so you see over and over again, they have a stable of black, in particular black male lead characters that you just can't seem to figure out. And I don't understand that. That seems strange to me, and I don't know where that comes from.
Part of that is that none of them have any sort of a rogues gallery. They have no villains to fight. Second, Storm doesn't function as a solo hero, so I'm going to disregard her. None of the X-Men do except for Wolverine, period. Cable and Wolverine are the only two that can carry their own books. But, you know, I think a lot of it is they haven't done anything to make a lot of these characters stand out. Miles just gets, they want to make him stand out as a black lead carrying his own book, yet all they do is give him Peter's hand-me-downs. Falcon, they can't.
I know this is going to take way too long.
Yeah,
We got to get back on schedule. We got another topic. We got Brian Borden says such disrespect to Simon, Kirby, and Grunwald. It sucks. There's so much history there. Perch of doing great things with Cap. It's been so long.
Yeah, I mean, we forget Grunwald had what, like a 10-year plus run? It was a long run, and it was all around great. I think Simon and Kirby, tons of people did. I don't think it's that hard to do a good Cap book. I think Mark Waid back with who is he drawing with? What's that?
Ron Garney.
Yeah, Garney. I thought that run back in the late 90s was great. You can do a great Cap run. It only gets bad if you decide the purpose of your story is going to be question who Cap is. Don't question who Cap is. Just let Cap be Cap. Adventures. You could do Black Ops. You could do High Adventure. You can have him be Indiana Jones. Lots of things you can do with Cap. Just don't have him miserable and questioning who he is.
Yeah, so we got Paul Ib. Justice League dying makes me sad. Not in DC's way. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what they're thinking. These guys. We got Lade Kramer. What the F is up with DC Black Label? Nothing is shipping on time. Get Joker 3 is going to be 6 months late. These premium books are like $6 to $8.
I'll tell you what's wrong with Black Label is your head editor over there regularly talks about how he ate 3 boxes of pizza and passed out, or he's too high to answer email.
Yep.
That's your problem.
Or he goes online chastising fans, saying, "Yeah, complain again. I'll turn the switch off, and then you won't get your precious comics."
He's got the comments again openly saying, I hate writing email. I'm not going to do it today. Life is too hard. I think the entire world's ending anyway in the next 6 months. What does any of it matter?" And you're like, cool. So we can
really too. No, he really does.
Yeah.
No, I'm not exaggerating. That's verbatim the stuff he does.
I almost did a video on that one.
Oh man.
Can you believe this guy?
He is by far, I know Antos gets all the attention. The batshit craziest editorial tweets come out of that guy.
100%.
Yeah, that guy is he's your Black Label guy, so that makes sense. So thank you very much to Lade Kramer. Do we have anything else to say about Cap before we talk about the 10 Lives of Wolverine?
I'm just gonna have a overarching thought here, but I think part of the problem we see with this specific situation where we have like Cap Steve Rogers, Cap Falcon thing coming into play is you've got these 2 generations that were kind of raised for these 2 different characters. And I think as long as you try to make both generations mix, you're going to have these conflicts that aren't going to work because you're trying to mix 2 different things together. I fully believe you should have just 2 lines. You should have lines with your classic characters and lines where you just progress forward.
That would work very well. I do want to say before we hit this last topic, thank you to everyone that's given us a thumbs up. We've been almost to 400 on the live stream for essentially 2 hours now. So thank you very much. We had a great audience here. If you can't give us a thumbs up, we're almost at 250. I'd love to get over 250 before we end this thing. We got another, 20 minutes to do it. So you got an opportunity to give us a thumbs up. Let everyone know we're having a good time. Let's talk about the 10 Lives of Wolverine. There's an amazing moment in here, Perch. Did you know that Wolverine held Charles Xavier as a baby?
I didn't like that comic.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, they're sending him back in time to help save Xavier because Omega Red is trying to kill him for reasons. I don't care. I mean, it's just I don't understand. This is now they're saying the successor to House of X, Powers of 10. It's going to have the same level of impact in the Marvel universe.
Doesn't feel that way.
No, not at all. I mean, the only thing is if he's going to keep saving Xavier, are they going to reveal that Wolverine was actually the one that knocked up Xavier's mom and he's his dad? Is that the big shock that we're getting out of this?
Avengers 200 moment?
Avengers 200. Well, he's not going to then start dating Xavier. Or maybe he will. I don't know.
Hey, Perch, did you know that Cerebro can now time travel you?
I don't want this.
And Omega Red can possess people, give him powers in the past.
Well, to be fair, there is precedent for that.
I mean, can they bring back Nature Girl? That's where I'm at right now. Let's have more Nature Girl.
Nature Girl. That might be the best villain of the Marvel Comics universe. What do you think?
That's been the most significant villain the Marvel has created in the X Office for the last 2 years.
Well, probably since Captain Marvel, really. Carol Danvers.
I'm not even joking. Look at the Rogues Gallery of the X-Men universe. I mean, it's a toss-up between whatever Colossus's brother is doing in Nature Girl. That's where we're at.
Yeah, it's not very good. What do you think about this comic book, Gabe? I know. Were you impressed?
I wasn't offended by it, so that's a plus. So okay, we're going to spoil it. All right. So Omega Red goes into the Krakoan resurrection protocol computer system, and he finds out that people are mucking around with his body when he resurrects to make him safer, more docile.
No, they're
No.
tracking him. He's
Or
the
tracking
roach.
or something.
They put a
But
low
if
jack
you look,
in him.
but if you look at the signature at the bottom, the one who's like, "You will do this and you will like it," is Beast.
Mhm.
Beast is the one that puts that order in place. So then somehow Omega Red starts
man.
quantum leaping back through time to kill in other people's bodies to kill Xavier. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so Charles then gets Wolverine to quantum leap back in time in his own body to save Xavier. And okay. I mean, again, I wasn't offended by it. It's wonky. It doesn't seem like it's important because it doesn't. And if this is supposed to be the successor to House of X, Powers of X, and I don't see it. I don't see how this means anything. It just seems like a one-off kind of episode of Quantum Leap X-Men edition, and then you just kind of move on with your day. So
I
if that's
hope
what they're going to
Omega
go for. That's
Red
it.
kills him. I hope Xavier dies. That's it.
I think he's going to dive in the other books, the Death's book, right?
Just keep killing Xavier.
Oh no. So Dylan, you read this. I think Marvel's come to the wrong conclusion that the reason House of X Powers of 10 was successful and was important was because it was a weekly book that came out for 3 months and it was X-Men and it had 2 titles. So they've tried to replicate that part, but they forgot to replicate the part where the story felt like it mattered.
Yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere. It doesn't make sense for having Omega Red just go back in time and try to take out Xavier. I don't know who asked for this. I don't know who wanted this. The only bright side I could say is the fact that they're going back in time gets us the hell away from Krakoa. So I'm happy for that because I cannot stand Krakoa. I hate Krakoa with a passion because every single X-Men book, every issue, they're on Krakoa. They're talking about Krakoa. They're going into Krakoa. I hate it so much. So at least there's that. But I just don't understand who this book is for. It's really disappointing because we had a one-shot prior to this that was really good about Wolverine and Moby Dick, basically. And now we get this. So it is what it is.
I'll say it. I don't like Ben Percy as a writer. I'm not enjoying
liked his Nightwing stuff. It was good.
Yeah.
His X-Force, I people praise it and they have, but I think it's pretty poor in the grand scheme of things. His Wolverine has had moments that have been good. I think more of that has to do with Vic on art when he was doing that. That's what I loved about that. I don't think he's that good. I think he's one of the weaker extra office writers, and that is a damning comment.
Yeah, you know what? For the first couple of issues of X-Force and Wolverine, it showed some promise. I think everyone else, the first maybe 10 issues, weren't bad. And then maybe he's building to something. And then the 15 issues since, it's just been, well, maybe he'll get back to being as good as he was on the first 10 issues that really actually in hindsight weren't all that great. Just maybe leading to something great. Yeah. Oh fuck. We got had.
That's kind of been his trend. I mean, I remember, I think the first thing I ever read that he wrote was a 2-part story in Detective Comics that was excellent during the New 52, and I had high hopes for him after that. And every short story he's done has been strong, but anytime he's on an ongoing series, it does not. He can't.
Maybe that's why I like his Nightwing stuff, because he's got that really good story there at the end. Before they essentially has to leave because Nightwing loses his personality.
Yeah.
Oh, you disagree with me, Josh?
I wasn't a fan of the whole Buyer storyline, and there's a demon monster thing, Worm, but wasn't it called Buyer? It was in technology and coming out and turning people. Yeah,
it was good for two or 3 issues, and then it went bad.
Somebody in the chat nailed it. Lance nailed it. Ben Percy thinks he's Chuck Dixon, but he's just Chuck Austin.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love for Chuck Austin to be writing an X book right now.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would. Chuck Austin would be an improvement over the entire X office. That's how bad it is.
We've talked to Joe Casey. I would beg for Joe Casey to come back and do some books right now. It would be wonderful. I think. I mean, I'm not a fan of several of these books, and I'm a huge X-Men fan, complete run. But I mean, Al Ewing's putting out a better book. I don't particularly love that book, but it's better. I know it'll make everybody on this panel cringe, but I think Marauders tells a more consistent story than X-Force has. I don't like either. But these aren't good books, and I think I don't know. I'm with you. It didn't offend me. It takes a lot for a comic to offend me. I don't want this.
So Perch, we did see that they released the very first issue on Marvel Unlimited.
Sure.
I've seen speculation. Is that because the sales weren't there? There wasn't enough enthusiasm. They had to do something.
Yeah, I think they're trying to drive. Well, I think that the idea was fairly simple. House of X Powers of 10 did really well. It generated a lot of interest. They're trying to replicate that a little bit. They're trying to drive people to Marvel Unlimited. They're like, hey, we're going to put the first issue out here. There's a bunch of hype behind it. Come by Marvel Unlimited. You want in on this? I think they're not meeting their numbers on Marvel Unlimited, and so they're trying to get something going with it. That's all I think it is.
And I think part of the reason where maybe it's falling flat again, it's inoffensive. It's a sci-fi mutant story starring Wolverine. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's inoffensive. I think part of why it's not hitting the way they maybe had intended to is everybody's hyper focused on just being done with the Krakoa era of X-Men. Let's either change something, move on, do something else. Maybe some people are getting hung up that Hickman wanted to go to a phase 2 and phase 3, and that we're waiting for that to eventually come out, even though it's not going to come out with Hickman because he's gone, or something else. They're waiting to be done with Krakoa, or at least shake up the status quo so we can move on to a different focus. And so when you present a story like this that has one of the, arguably one of the most popular X-Men characters, that seems like it's inconsequential to anything other than as a little side story to what's going on with Krakoa. It's like, who cares?
Well, see, to me, this story was offensive because it took things and just made them do whatever they wanted for the story purpose. There was no time where they had to figure out how, Omega Red was somehow getting new powers, able to transfer his powers and have time travel powers. They just walk in, slap Wolverine on a Cerebro and say, fuck it, you can time travel now. That is offensive because it's just, I'm going to write whatever the fuck I want. And it doesn't matter how it doesn't need to make sense. I'm just going to write whatever the shit I want.
Isn't that what they did in the Days of Future Past movie? With
they at least used Kitty as the medium and claimed that her ability to slip through things could also allow her to slip through time. They at least had to have a justification. This is, let's slap a Cerebro unit on him and send him back in time. And they didn't even explain that. They just walk in, show him a Cerebro, and suddenly he's in the past. They don't even explain how that's supposed to work. They don't even bother. They don't even make it a fucking attempt.
I think I enjoyed Excalibur more than this issue.
This is just them saying, doesn't matter what all these here. We have power sets, we have equipment, we have technology. None of it, all the stuff that you're familiar with. Yeah, we're just gonna make it up as we go.
But again, to that broader point is when they announced that this was coming up, it was part of that big, 12 apostles sitting at the table announcement where they had all the titles on the bottom. You're going to have this one, you're going to have that one, you have the other one. When you present yourself in that way, you set forth an implication that somehow we're all tying these things together to move towards some grander design, some bigger design. If you pick up this first issue and you're like, okay, how does this fit into something bigger at play? You get none of that. This seems like a very trivial kind of story. It's got some sci-fi elements and some, action set pieces, but it seems very inconsequential to anything else that's going on related to Krakoa or some bigger picture related to the mutants or whatever's happening on Mars and everything else that's going on there. So when you present it like, this is important, you got to pay attention to this, you read it and it's like, this doesn't look like it's important in any stretch, then you just sort of like start shrugging it off. And again, that apathy starts to set in, and that's a bad place to be.
Can I get a Nimrod comic at this point? I want to see how he goes through and slaughters this entire fucking species.
I'm just going to mention, Gabe was talking about some type of connection, and it almost seems like the connection they might be trying to build is just a Wolverine connection. And when I saw the Xavier thing, the fear that I had was, oh dear God, we're going to have every one of these issues with him tying back to a character in the past that hasn't been done before. And it's a trope that's in comics right now that I hate, because I think the writers think it brings more importance. The reality is it just makes your world smaller.
Yep.
And I fully believe that's what we're about to get. So
Well, they did that whenever about 15 years ago when they did that first X-Men series, where you find out Wolverine was actually an X-Man before the X-Men.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is the model, if this is what they're pursuing for this title, it wouldn't surprise me where every issue is another decade in the life of Wolverine, because he's traveling back in time through his own body. And so he's like, okay, now I'm going to save Xavier when he was 12 years old. And now I'm going to save Xavier when he was 18 and then 24. So all you're getting is different decades of Wolverine's life. And that's fine as a one-off Wolverine title. But as far as anything related to anything that's going on with Krakoa, it's meaningless.
Yep.
Definitely rooting for Nimrod and the Sentinels.
It's a tough time. I want to support Nimrod any way I can. Orcus,
absolutely.
You know, if I can help.
Nimrod is right.
Call me.
Nimrod.
They did a GoFundMe. I'd be popping some money over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nimrod is. I want to see
Nimrod
hashtag
is. Nimrod is.
Nimrod
Yeah,
is.
as I think I've said before, look, if their goal here was to make the actual readers hate the X-Men as much as they wanted us to believe that the humans in the Marvel universe hated mutants, they achieved it.
Yeah, they've been very effective at that. We do have a super chat in here from Robin DeHood. Ben Percy's Green Arrow was dog water. That's very descriptive, Josh. What do you think?
I mean, look, I'm not going to disagree. I agree to a point. His new 52 stuff was terrible. The Rebirth stuff started off promising and kind of fizzled out. But
that's a lot of his stories.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
that's too bad.
Even the good stuff, he was just riding the coattails of Lemire. So,
whoa, that's not a nice thing to say.
So we'll see. We'll see if Kieran Gillen can bring some silliness, but I expect
he's the replacement for Hickman, right? He's the big name now.
We'll see a watered down, version of Game of Thrones that Hickman's given us, that Gillen's given us like 5 times already. So,
and I want to see if he can make Sinister. Let's see how many more dangerous villains he can turn into mincing weirdos.
Wait, Doc with some last second self-editing there.
Yes, exactly.
He was going to go somewhere.
Fuck Kieran Gillen. He sucks.
Yeah.
His Darth Vader is really good.
Yeah, Doc was steered us right to demonetization and brought it back.
You got to appreciate the self-control there, Doc. Way to go, buddy. That's growth. It was always like, stop censoring Doc. It's like, you have no fucking clue what this dude said. You hear the stuff I leave in, right?
Yeah. That's the stuff he leaves in. I'm a bastard.
I know, Dylan, you were all in for the 10 lives, 10 deaths. Does this feel like it's another gateway into trying to test out X-Men again?
No, I don't think this is going to bring anyone in. I don't think this really gets anyone excited. It's just not a story that really engages you, and they're just making stuff up to do what they need to do. It doesn't feel like it's something that anyone really asked for. No one wanted to see Wolverine holding baby Xavier. No one asked for that, but we're getting it anyways.
You know what I didn't ask for, Gabe? A picture of Xavier's mom holding a baby with an umbilical cord still in her coochie, and she's holding a shotgun.
Hey, look, when you're confronted by a midwife who's possessed by the soul of Omega Red, you're going to do some weird stuff. I'm just going to put that out there. So I can go with it. Was it necessary? Not really. No. I think there are other ways you could play that scene out, but like I said, I wasn't offended by it. It is what it is.
I was offended by the $6 cover price.
None of those are Omega Red's powers.
No, which was weirder for you, having Xavier's mom holding a shotgun while holding the baby with the umbilical cord still up there, or Logan lovingly and gently snipping the umbilical cord with this bone claw.
Too bad it wasn't Hot Claws, right, Kurt?
Yeah, we needed Hot Claws there. And can I just say, I know there's plenty of 90s fans here and everything, but I think Omega Red has always been one of the shittier villains.
Yeah, cauterize that.
He's not really a terribly interesting villain. He's pretty boring. Also, those aren't his powers. He can't They tried doing that during the Remender run, but that's not what his how his powers work. He also can't transfer his whipping. And you notice they gave him like bone whip things that came out of his instead of like the coils.
Well, because he's possessing the people, they don't have the those coils, so they're parts.
They
of his
also
bone.
don't have that many bones.
Yeah, no. But we should see these people like have floppy legs and everything because the bones are coming out of other parts of their body. So they should just be like jelly with these.
They look like they're
flailing
spinal
wrists.
columns.
Little spines. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're giving this way more thought than the writer of the comic did.
I mean,
Video
Omega Ray,
Star Production
Omega Ray comes
says-
out of the. Yeah, I mean, Omega Ray comes out of that period of comics where you had the Cold War and everything else, where you had Russian analogs of the American heroes, right? So that's where you get Red Guardian, that's where you get Omega Red, that's where you get all these other characters that were, cold steppes of Russia trying to come at you. I think maybe that model has outlived its.
We got a hashtag Bring Back Bastard. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. This is one of the things I've seen. Jamal Lewis says Hickman's Moon Knight might be good. He's not writing Moon Knight. He's writing a story in an anthology book.
Yeah, 8
It's
pages.
only going to be one issue.
8 pages in one issue.
Yeah, it's like I was supposed to get excited for that. It's like, tell me what he's actually going to be writing. Plus, the Moon Knight series by Jed McKay is absolutely fantastic. Perch. If people want to read something good, go read Moon Knight.
Sure, Moon Knight's a great book.
Is that the best book at Marvel right now?
It's one of the top ones. I definitely enjoy it.
What are you saying there?
Maybe they'll release it as an anthology and rename it to Moon Knight Black, White, and White.
Black, White, and White. That would really make sense.
Nobody gets that joke? Nobody gets that joke? Okay, fine.
It's good. It's good. I like it.
All right. Doc says we need a Nimrod is right t-shirt. I've got a Nimrod as my homeboy t-shirt that I'm going to make. But I just got to get over the printer. That one's going to be fun. Does anyone else have anything to say about the 10 Lives of Wolverine? Is anyone excited for the 10 Deaths of Wolverine?
I want to see him die and die and die. In fact, you know what? What we need is the infinite deaths of all of mutants right now. Genocide is the solution.
Jesus Christ.
Here's Doc getting us back to that demonic.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you can use that word. Jesus.
I'm talking about fictional things. Come on.
You don't understand what's monitoring us aren't people. It's actually a computer program. And it has
Nimrod.
no idea what the context of what you just said was.
It's
Maybe we
it's-
need to put-
it's Nimrod, which is why I say I am in support of you AI robots. You are
Absolutely.
doing God's work, so keep at it.
As I said, Nimrod is right. So
Yeah.
I'm behind
Maybe we
Nimrod.
need to
I'm
put
definitely
Doc in
behind
charge of
Omega
editing a
Sentinel.
Nature Girl comic. I think that the two of them pair well together.
Absolutely.
We're gonna unleash the true villain inside of Nature Girl. Finally, we got Brian Borden. I've been enjoying reading X-Men over the past few months. Well, the original 153 issues in Burns' Hidden Years. Well, that's the way you do it. If you want to enjoy X-Men, you go back to the Claremont stuff. Oh man, it's very good stuff. Anyone else have anything to say? I think we're done here, right?
Done.
We're done.
So does that mean? Well, I mean, there's just a quick question on that. So does that mean if X Lives of Wolverine means 10 Lives of Wolverine? So are we going to get this mini is going to be 10 issues, and then the death is going to be another 10 issues, and so this is a 20-issue run, maybe?
It's
5 and 5.
12.
5 and
Yeah.
5.
Or is it 6 and 6?
It's 6 and 6. It's 3
Okay.
months. I'm assuming that we're going to see Charles die 10 times in the other book.
Oh my God, you killed Xavier, you bastard.
Well, you can't kill him as a baby because he made it. So let's get back to our comic book recommendations and put a bow on this thing. We had a great panel today. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. We've had a very lively, fun-filled discussion as well in the viewer comments. So, Dylan, what do you recommend this week?
I have nothing that came out this week I'm going to recommend, so I'm just going to recommend what I reread. I just reread Kill Be Killed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips because I got the omnibus for it, and it's fantastic. Go read that. It's about a guy that tries to kill himself and then miraculously doesn't die, and a demon's like, hey, for the life I just saved you, you have to kill someone once a month for me. That's the initial premise. A lot more to it. Read it. It's really good.
And you haven't read Nottingham yet?
No, I have not.
Oh,
You are
Nottingham's
missing out, sir.
Nottingham's great.
Yeah, that's what you need to get at. You finally read Barbaric.
Yeah, Barbaric is great.
Yeah, that one was really good. Doc, what are you recommending? Anything recommending X Lives?
No, absolutely not. I will recommend ASM. It's still okay. So it's kind of a mediocre recommendation. But I will recommend I didn't get a chance to, since I wasn't on the show last week, recommend something last week. It was King of Spies. King of Spies is just fucking dope. It's from Mark Miller. I think somebody else might have recommended it, but I don't really care. I'm going to recommend it again.
Absolutely. That was a fantastic comic. Gabe, what do you recommend? You said you're not recommending DC this week. Neither am I. That DC
nothing out of DC I can recommend at this time. I have two recommendations. On the Marvel side, I have not been a big fan of Jed McKay's Moon Knight. I think it's been okay. I mean, when you come up against a villain whose power is mind control via sweat, I mean, you're kind of off the mark there a little bit. However, Moon Knight #7 was great. I like that version of Moon Knight a lot. I thought it kind of got back to what makes him special. He's a badass. He's Batman with a harder, crazier edge, and I like that a lot. So Moon Knight #7 is my Marvel pick. On the indie side, there's a comic that from Red 5 Comics called Mega. It's a two-parter. The second issue, I got an advanced review on that one. The second issue is coming out soon, but if you go to comicalopinions.com, that we have a review up for that second issue. It's basically everything you like about big kaiju monsters destroying the world, and a human drama at the center of that, with a little girl who's given the power to change it all. And really fantastic comic. I highly recommend that. It's called Mega, MEEGA, from Red 5 Comics.
Very good. We've got Infamy or Death. I think he's coming from Little Dublin. I recommend Barbarella and Priest Vampirella, the only two comics that I now buy. Canceled everything else, but I couldn't drop those two. Yes, he's almost fully moved on to manga, Perch.
Yeah. Well, those are good comics too.
Yeah, can't blame him. All right, Josh, what do you recommend this week?
I'm actually going to follow Doc for one of them and say King of Spies. And I'll just add that for whatever reason, my comic shop didn't even get that until this week. There's some weird things going on with shipping. But yeah, King of Spies is excellent. And then as far as just entertaining, it's a little brutal, but entertaining. Righteous Thirst for Vengeance is solid. So.
All right, what?
And I can't forget Teenie Howard's Catwoman.
You son of a bitch. You lying. That was unreadable. Gabe knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's so bad. Another example of if a male writer did this, they would be like chewed up and down. If a male writer had Catwoman on a stripper pole, they would be canceled in a heartbeat.
All right, Perch.
Well, so
are you going to unironically?
No. The books recommended were good. I think everything that people said was really good. The dog's going crazy out there. The book. I really enjoyed seeing Ron Mars and Ron Lim on Silver Surfer. It reminded me absolutely of that era. I think it's like this is a cosmic story for Marvel. Not too deep, but just visually great, and reminded me of that whole time period. I think that was a really enjoyable comic and definitely worth checking out. And then this is a very small little thing, but I really appreciated the new She-Hulk relaunch. Somebody remembered the apartment and everything that John Byrne put together for Jen and put it in that comic, and it was like they were deliberately trying to step in. Now, I don't know. The story had way too much silliness between Titania and She-Hulk.
Pretty bad dialogue.
Wasn't into that, but I did appreciate that somebody remembered that those comics existed and didn't treat Byrne like a pariah. And on the indie side, I mentioned it earlier, but there's I guess Zoop. I was going to say Kickstarter. Zoop. It's La Mano de Destino. And this was a comic that is by Jay Gonzo. He's a writer, the artist, the colorist. He does it all. It came out from Top Cow, the first version. This is a second volume. I love what he does. It's luchador. It's 70s exploitation kind of style. The art, everything. It's just, if you are a lucha wrestling fan, I just absolutely love what he did there, and it's so good. And go get the meats, I guess. Why not?
Very well done, George Renda. Perch recommends Arby's, and he would be right in doing so. And I'm going to stick with the wrestling theme. There's a comic book out from AWA. It's called The Crimson Cage. If you're a fan of old school NWA wrestling with the Four Horsemen, moving from territory to territory, they've got the lingo down. They've got the setting and everything. It's like a wrestling story mixed in with some weird, I don't know. What do they got going on in New Orleans? Is that voodoo? Some type of voodoo magic going in there. That thing is absolutely fantastic from AWA Studios. And I think you'll enjoy that one. I do want to say thank you very much to the whole panel. Had a great show. I hope everyone is enjoying the comics that they are reading. Stay away from Catwoman. That thing was abysmal, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.